Okay, all right, very good. Thank you very much. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm at-large council member Anita Bonds, chairperson of the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor. The time is 2:02 p.m. on Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023. We are meeting virtually via Zoom to convene a performance oversight hearing for the Financial Literacy Council and for the Workforce Investment Council. This hearing is being streamed and recorded on the committee's YouTube channel named EAL Committee. It is also available on cable channel 13 on the DC website and on www.entertainment.dc.gov. Today's hearing is to receive public and government witness testimony regarding these agencies' performances for FY22 and FY23 to date. I would like to note that the entire written testimony will be a part of the record. So if you are testifying, will you please submit your testimony by email to CEAL@dccouncil.gov. That's CEAL with an C@dccouncil.gov. The COVID-19 pandemic created significant challenges for our education and workforce systems. Many of these challenges persist today as we continue our efforts to support district residents looking to build a stable and prosperous future for themselves. We must ensure that our community institutions are all working together. Today, we will have an opportunity to better understand what the Financial Literacy Council and the Workforce Investment Council have accomplished over this past year, and we'll be able to identify areas of success and areas for improvement. At this time, I want to thank everyone who will appear before us today, and we will, recognizing that we do not have any public witnesses for the Financial Literacy Council, we will begin with Mr. Jeffrey Banks, who is the chairperson of the council. I'll first just read a brief statement about the council so that we all are on the same page. The District of Columbia Financial Literacy Council was established by the DC Council through enactment of the Financial Literacy Council Establishment Act of 2008. The purpose of the council is to assist and advise the mayor and the DC Council in promoting the financial literacy of city residents. The council coordinates and promotes the district's various financial literacy efforts and reporting to the public on the status of literacy in the city. The council's values devotion, community, fairness, leadership, and commitment. And it consists of 9 members, 1 appointed by the chairman of the council, 1 appointed by the chairperson of the council committee with oversight of the Department on Insurance, Securities, and Banking, 1 member appointed by the chief financial officer, 6 members appointed by the mayor, including 1 representing the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, 1 member representing DC Public Schools, and 4 members who are district residents with extensive knowledge of financial institutions, personal finance, and financial literacy programs. Members serve for a 4-year term and must meet at least quarterly. They create and operate under their own rules of procedure, develop a plan for the coordination of the district's various financial literacy efforts, and submit an annual report and recommendations to the mayor and the council. I'm looking forward to hearing about the work and the progress of the Financial Literacy Council and their accomplishments and its objectives, what they have achieved over the last year. And I'm also intrigued to hear how current public and private financial literacy education services and resources have impacted DC residents and their financial goals. And again, since we have no public witnesses, I am going to turn to the chairperson of the Financial Literacy Council, and I will now swear you in. Thank you, Mr. Banks, for joining us today.
Thank you.
You will raise your right hand. All right. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be truthful and complete?
I do.
All right. You can begin when you're ready, sir.
Well, good afternoon, Chairperson Bonds, committee members, and staff. I'm Jeffrey Banks, Chairperson of the District of Columbia Financial Literacy Council, the FLC. On behalf of Muriel Bowser, I appreciate the opportunity to appear today to testify on the Financial Literacy Council's activities during the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 to date. As you had mentioned earlier, the District of Columbia Financial Literacy Council was created by the Financial Literacy Council Establishment Act of 2008. The purpose of the Financial Literacy Council is to assist and advise the mayor and the council of the District of Columbia in promoting financial literacy of district residences. The Financial Literacy Council's mission is threefold. Number one, empower residents to achieve short and long-term financial goals. Number two, assist and advise the mayor and the council of the District of Columbia in promoting financial literacy in the District of Columbia. And number three, facilitate the coordination of public and private financial literacy and educational services. The Financial Literacy Council meets quarterly, typically the third Thursday of January, April, July, and October. Meetings are open to the public, and participating organizations are encouraged to share meeting notices with their members and clients. Attendees are also provided a platform for any issues they may have related to financial education. Residents are encouraged to offer input, create relationships, solicit assistance from service providers and community stakeholders. The Financial Literacy Council continues to benefit from the use of call-in and virtual meetings technology. Experience has shown that these virtual meetings have not negatively impacted the ability for residents to provide comment and feedback, and in some instances may have improved it by creating access for those who may not have been able to attend in-person meetings. The Financial Literacy Council continues to leverage technology in order to reach residents, businesses, and community stakeholders. Financial literacy is becoming increasingly important in the current economic environment. District residents are still feeling the impact of the COVID-19 public health emergency and the resulting economic downturn in job market instability. Residents need financial literacy resources that empower them to make informed decisions about personal finances, which include basic understanding of the principles of credit, debt, savings, investment, depository institutions, interest, and budgeting. The Financial Literacy Council is committed to providing access to resources and information to district residents and employees. The Financial Literacy Council continues to use its 2021 core recommendations report as a guiding document for our work. The report, which represents Mayor Bowser's ongoing commitment to creating pathways to financial freedom for district residents, was produced and captured the needs and aspiration of district residents, changes in the financial literacy landscape, and new programmatic opportunities. Specifically, the report recommends the integration of financial literacy in DC public school curriculum at all levels, including a financial literacy course as a high school graduation requirement. In fact, when we did a survey, 83% of the participants felt very strongly about this requirement. The report also recommends strengthening the implementation of financial literacy programming and resources for returning citizens, promoting financial capability training and wealth management training in the workplace, and the production of a biannual financial literacy resource guide. We believe the recommendations will provide district residents with the skills and actionable steps to not only improve their financial literacy, but also the quality of life through greater financial security. As we move further into the fiscal year of 2023, the Financial Literacy Council will continue working on its goals for the year, including the production and digital distribution of a bi-monthly newsletter, an annual financial resource guide, a financial literacy conference, and other virtual presentations in coordination with local, regional, and national practitioners and stakeholders. The Financial Literacy Council held its first hybrid conference in April of 2022 to promote banking access, investment, cryptocurrency, and credit information. The event was held at the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking's office and included community members, industry professionals. The Financial Literacy Council is finalizing plans for the fiscal year 2023 conference, which should take place in April. Additionally, the Financial Literacy Council has supported the work on the Black home ownership strike force launched by Mayor Bowser and led by strike force members such as yourself, Chairman Bonds. In summer of 2022, the Financial Literacy Council provided input and support to the strike force recommendations. And we just last week on Saturday, the Financial Literacy Council supported the Get Ready DC Black home ownership workforce, which promoted home ownership in the African-American community. This day-long event featured interactive sessions with financial counselors, realtors, home appraisers, a home purchase assistant program pre-certification class, a home ownership resource fair that showcased information related to down payment assistance, saving for a home, and credit repair. The event had over 200 registered attendees. I was really impressed when I had a chance to participate this Saturday. Also, the Financial Literacy Council has participated in the DC Reach project, spearheaded by DSBY. The roundtable brings together national and local leaders from the business, technology, and banking industries, civil rights organizations, and community organizations, government agencies. DC Reach focuses on three main priorities: improving access to credit for district residents, expanding affordable home ownership in the district, and providing support and access to capital for small and minority-owned district businesses. Another project the Financial Literacy Council has been involved with is to continue to be a proud of its Financially Fit DC work program. The FLC collaborated with the DC Office of the Chief Financial Officer, DSBY, and the DC Department of Human Resources on a grant application to the National Association of State Treasurers Foundation as part of a new national initiative to improve the financial wellness of the public sector workforce. The district, through the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, was awarded a $100,000 grant to design and implement the program. Financially Fit DC at Work has been designed to provide a comprehensive suite of programs, products, and services for current district government employees, their spouses, and eligible dependents and retirees. The program includes financial wellness training for all new DC government employees, a one-stop website and education platform, monthly group presentations, and individual financial counsel. In fiscal year 2022, the program engaged with over 2,500 employees through events, webinars, and open enrollment, increasing the number of employees signed up for the platform from 292 people to 981 people. In closing, I would like to thank you, Chairperson Bonds, for your leadership and support. I appreciate the opportunity to share the Financial Literacy Council's activities as well as its plans for continued innovation and improvement. And before I take questions, I just wanted to thank a few of the people, our Commissioner Karima Woods for all the support with her staff, with Dolly Turner being the Chief of Staff, and Michelle Hammonds and Miss Rebecca Rendell, and some of the former people, Idris Abdullah, and most of all, the council members. I don't want to name all of them by individual names, but they really worked hard to come up with the recommendations. And we really welcome to the three new people that are coming on board this year. I'll take your questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for your report and for talking with us today. You mentioned some very important dates, almost dates, at least events. Your fiscal year 2023 conference, do you have a date for that activity yet?
I believe we're looking at the 25th of April.
26th.
It's the 26th of April. And
All right.
it will be at the DC to be determined. Yeah, we had it last year at DSB's headquarters. And with that, we've had a chance to bring in different people to come in to talk about some of the programs that the district has. And it was well received with stakeholders and some of the DC residents who have been able to stay in touch with.
All right, and I'm assuming this event will be, of course, open to the community, and you're expecting the community to have opportunity to take advantage of some of the products, financial products that are available.
Yes, ma'am. We had our auditorium at the Disby location. It was well attended. It was a good crowd, and we were really fortunate to get a lot of people to talk to our stakeholders so that we could, be able to link them at the hybrid last year.
All right. I thank you very much for that. I really want to thank you for your Get Ready DC Black Home Ownership workshop that you did. As a member of the Black Home Ownership Strike Force, one of the things that we pointed out was the need for information, opportunities to for our potential homeowners to learn and to grow from those experiences, and the opportunity to do home purchase. And I know credit rating is one of the issues, and I see that you are working with them to access credit, but how can we, in your estimation, as a government, as a community, help individuals improve their credit to the extent that they are more eligible for a home purchase, as an example?
We have about 20 nonprofits that are involved with us that provide financial education. They're very organizations that don't charge any money to sit down and to talk to people one-on-one. And I would recommend that we have people, when we have our quarterly meetings, we open it up to people so that they can bring their issues to the committee in front of some of the professionals. I know I'm out there, my bank is out there, our colleagues from the Metropolitan Bankers Association are involved as volunteers. there's a lot of organizations that are out there providing quality education. And I just think that we really need to be able to reach as many DC residents as possible. I'm just thinking about the event that was at the Martin Luther King Library over the weekend with all the attendees that came. Hopefully next year, we will be able to go to the convention center, have that many more people to be ready. And I think that what's important is the long term, the reason why it's important to work on your credit and get disciplined about needs versus wants. Understand we have so many workshops on credit workshops and free credit reports and annualcreditreport.com, different ways that they can go ahead to see what is it that's on your credit report. Many times people just give up, like this is a pipe dream that I can never make, but there are practical things that we go through the process with all the providers to show people what to do, find out who you owe, what do you owe, what's on your report, and then let's go at it from there. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes time, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can always clean up your credit. It may take some time. It may take some resources, but it takes, main thing is determination.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. I wondered, are you doing work with the WIC residents, those who participate in the Workforce Incentive Council?
Not directly. Some of my other nonprofits that I work with, they're working directly with them. CAB and a couple other organizations.
And so they share the information with the participants in those programs?
Hopefully they're still doing it. I know that they prepare the earned interest income credit when they file the tax returns for people. And they provide services. So I'm pretty sure that they're still doing that. I know I used to teach classes with quite a few of the nonprofits that are providing direct resources. I'm on boards with another organization that works with DC.
So at this time, the Financial Literacy Council doesn't really track that, how you are, or your support organizations are working with some of our clients that take advantage of other programs that we have in the government?
Not at this time.
Let me ask you about, you mentioned something that I thought was really exciting, and that's the Financially Fit DC. How do personnel access the services of your council? I know you said you had a lot of programs. You engaged over 2,500 employees through events and webinars, but if an employee wanted to access your services, Financially Fit DC, how do they do that?
Yeah, it's at at.financiallyfitdc.com. At work.financialfitdc.com. They can go to that website. And then we have the also Financially Fit website for people that are not DC government employees. So the whole community has an age appropriate portals that they can go in and do the review.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, the DCHR website as well for the DC employees.
Great. Thank you. In your responses to several of the pre-hearing questions, you mentioned that you are an advisory board and not a service provider. What service provider would you suggest the DC utilize to implement your suggestions? And I'm thinking back about your core fiscal year 2021 action plan, and within it you make a number of recommendations, and then you propose action. And I'm just wondering, to implement these action steps, what are you, how do you see your recommendations being implemented?
You know, we had a hearing with the council chairman on the mandatory for education for the DC public schools in order to graduate. And hopefully that legislation will move forward. I know that we're doing work with the DC public schools. I know the mayor had, that was one of her things. And I know that there's some things that are going on. DSBE can assist with the Office of Financial Empowerment and Education. That's something that's already being done. I believe the district is doing something with the returning citizens. That's something that's already being done. We just don't have any money we're not a agency that's funded to provide direct services. But I can say that some of our recommendations are being taken and being performed right now. I'm going to chair our committee to see about the actual impact committee to see, you know, how are we reaching out, how many people are we touching, because it's a monumental task, but it's being done, and we can always you know, increase that. So love to, you know, with the district reaching out to so many people that may be marginalized, to make sure that we don't leave anyone that's out there.
So you mentioned one of the action items is reaching out and working with returning citizens. Can you, for the record, indicate what are some of the activities that you recommended for returning citizens and the status of those activities, if you know?
Yeah, let me look at my notes here. We had it was a strengthening the implementation of financial literacy programming and resources for returning citizens. Now, when I talked to the office, they mentioned that they had several states that our citizens are incarcerated in, and it's good to try to meet with them to go over some of this thing and let them know before they're released. Because as you know, we have at least about 2,800 to 3,000 people that are returning home every year. And during the pandemic, a lot more people came out in 2020. So these are our recommendations. And with DSBE and the information that we have on the website, you know, for training, that's something that we definitely know that they're working with. Ms. Michelle Hammonds from the DSBE, she's been working with the returning citizens.
So, Mr. Banks, are you helping us to understand that for returning citizens, there is a programmatic approach that the Literacy Council takes when a citizen is returning to DC, that they maybe receive a packet of information or there's some orientation, just trying to understand how this recommendation is really being implemented and who is it really reaching?
Yeah, because when I talk to the people that are working with the Office of Returning Citizens, they, we're trying to implement this. And one of the things that they were telling me is that the challenges is that there's so many institutions, and their goal is to go to each one of the jails at least once a year. But I think it's over 40 different prisons that are citizens. That was a report that I had gotten from the Office of Returning Citizens. So that's something that we want to implement, and it's in the process of development, but we need to really be able to provide that information, because as you know, when a person is incarcerated, the child support, their credit, or everything heads south. And then that's used to discriminate, in addition to discrimination in employment with someone. We did away with check the box, but they still can look and say, well, find another way not to hire a person, because it becomes a financial nightmare and payroll and that kind of thing when they have garnishments and that kind of thing. So this is something that I really would love to see us do when the piece as part of the pre-release, and that's in development, because that is a challenge, because we have so many different locations around the country.
Yes, you mentioned there are probably 40 different institutions where we have District of Columbia residents, former residents. I was just wondering how your organization has recommended the outreach to take place. So kind of helps me a little bit, but I hear what
It's a
you're
monumental
saying.
task. I've reached out and I've talked to the people, and then some of the grassroots people. I reached out to people like so many other people. Ceasefire, different organizations that I work and support over the years. And we really need to find a way to be able to reach out to the people before they're released. And some jails are better than others. Some are about punishment. Some are about trying to really help people turn their lives around. So we just need to be able to focus on that until we, I guess, have our own institution, and if we had it here, it could be a lot better, concentration. We could
All right,
control
and
it better.
so your response is that this is still in the recommendation stage, beginning to look at the numbers that are returning to the city every year, and putting in place a process utilizing the Office of Returning Citizens to reach out to these individuals to help them gain some financial literacy.
Yeah, it's in development with Disby and Morka.
All right. Thank you for that.
Right now, I can say that I've done a lot of classes with the returning citizens for different organizations and nonprofits, but it would be great if we could have something that, like I said, reach out to our returning citizens before they're released.
All right. Is financial literacy education yet a high school graduation requirement?
Not yet. That's
Not
with
yet.
our history. That hearing with Chair Mendelson was all about, and I would hope, I followed up with him, and it was still, there hadn't been to move it up to a vote by the council. But I would love to have that elevated, because just think about it, if a child could get a core curriculum on financial education, they could really share that information with their parents who probably have never had that before. And it could really help a household. And definitely we want our kids to be prepared as they go out into the world. And when they go to college, to make sure that they don't do something that can destroy their credit. So I think it's just so important because people don't know what they don't know. And we need, I could just go on and on and on my soapbox, but I mean, we really need to make this this core recommendation. I mean, 83% of the survey of our people in the city agree with us that it should be a core.
Okay, when we talk about financial literacy as an educational goal, I'm just wondering, what do you think it would take to actually make this a part of the standard graduating curriculum, let's say?
Well, I was a former co-chair of the OSSE, Office of the State Superintendent of Schools, for the Career Academy for Financial Education. And we had, and we still were working with some of the schools, and the kids are really smart, and it's just amazing how bright some of them come up with a Shark Tank on their businesses and the things that they want to do. And it's been going on. We're about ready to have some kids to graduate that have just started over the last 3 years. And I just think that if we had it, we could take this to the greater DC public schools. And it's just, at this point, I have so much passion about it that I think that DC public schools should just really get ready. I think this is something that other jurisdictions are requiring around the country, and I don't want us to be lagging. We have so many opportunities. When I teach a class, I talk about DC's budget, about $19.5 billion. We have over $5 billion in expendable goods and services, and we need businesses that can, we need kids that can go to college, start their own businesses, work with someone, get some training, and start their own businesses. It just doesn't make sense that I see so many young people coming into the city and they're able to take these contracts. On that $1 billion for local businesses, we still haven't been able to hit that. So we need to have a pipeline so that we can, we need a pipeline so that we can have kids that are thinking about owning their businesses, educating our citizens so that we can go ahead and take advantage of these opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. I know that one of the goals of our DC public schools is to focus on preparing our young people for, what happens when you don't go to college, yet you leave high school, as an example. So that does lead us to, how do we give these young people an opportunity to create a successful life? And so I think financial literacy, as you have articulated it, is very, very important. And I'd like to pursue with the chairman as to where he is with the objective that you shared with him, and see where we can go with this.
God bless you. God bless you, because I really have passion for it. And I've talked to him and I want him to move forward.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And in the same note, the points that you've made about our returning citizens, they are definitely ours. They are our citizens, and they are coming back into community. And certainly they need to have the opportunity to get their finances in order, which is a requirement, because they must have a place to live and they must have a job. And so your work could be very, very helpful. We probably need to press a little stronger on that as well, to make sure that you said that you've been meeting with the Office of Returning Citizens. But let's see if we can't also get that information out in some formalized way, so that we can be assured that at least the information has been shared in a digestible manner so that the returning citizens can have a better opportunity in these. I know that there are some issues that they have. Yes, they have to have renew their identification, and I know we have, ban the box, but also there's the issue of those that return and really want to have the expungement of some of their records. And right now, I think we only do expungement of maybe 2 particular categories, and I think they tend to be misdemeanors as opposed to felony charges. So we won't go into that because we're not talking to the Office of Returning Citizens, but that was brought to my attention when I began discussing this matter in the community with returning citizens, and they're like, yeah, we want to know all about how we can, make money and then hold on to money and have a future. But first we got to get a job. And that seems to be the tantamount issue for many. So.
Yeah, I've just been fortunate to work with the returning citizens over the years with the Department of Employment Services, and it's just amazing that to this day I can be out and about in DC and someone will come up to me and say, "Hey, Mr. Banks, you taught me about financial education when I came home from jail." And I still been working and, keeping a job and haven't gone back to jail. So that's just really great when I, see people out there that have benefited, but we need to do so much more. And I've talked to the former director of the Office of Returning Citizens to get insight and recommendations on how to move forward. But I'll need to talk to the current administration.
Okay, I have a few fun questions for you. In this high interest rate era, how do you help the community understand credit and interest?
I'm very blunt when I teach my classes. I try to curtail it when I'm talking to the kids, but it's very expensive to be poor and have bad credit because you pay more. I just look at my situation where I have a home equity line that I've used on my own house to go out and buy other properties. Over the last 6 months, the Federal Reserve has doubled the interest rates with only the cost of money. And the banks have increased the interest rates. So the outstanding balance that I have on my home equity loan, the interest rate doubled, so the payments doubled, practically doubled. And that was not foreseen. That wasn't in the budget. I was so used to the low interest rates and the low introductory rates, that kind of thing. The rates are consuming a lot of people's revenue, and hopefully the rates will go down. God forbid if they continue to go up at the Federal Reserve, because the banks immediately go ahead and increase their rates. But when we had 0.25%, 0.5%, it would seem like it was happening every week. It cost the people a lot, the consumers a lot of money to have existing debt. So I always try to encourage people to spend less, save more, and pay an extra amount of money towards those credit cards to eliminate that. I mean, just think about, you're not getting that much. Interest rates on deposits have started to climb, but they're not climbing anywhere near this credit card rates. So just think about the amount of money that you can really save if you pay down on those credit card bills, make arrangements to see if you can get a cap rate, or if you have a home mortgage, a home equity line. They have programs that you can go ahead and term out your loan and cap the interest rate. Talk to your financial institutions to see what can they do to help. I think it's just really important that we touch on that. I'm glad you asked about that, because the interest rates affected me, made me say, well, maybe perhaps I need to sell a property or something and pay this thing down. So it's just, I'm sure it's affecting everybody.
Thank you for that response. Which governmental entities, in your opinion, should assist district residents with literacy challenges? And what's the best way to achieve this? And how do we really address this? I know you've mentioned the Office of Returning Citizens. You've mentioned DC Public Schools. I'm just wondering, is there someplace other than the department you're already in that you think, or is it the department that you're in?
Yeah, I think the department that we're in, the Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking. But with the DC Financial Literacy, we also have the federal, the Consumer Financial Protection Board. We have the FDIC. They have information. They have resources. They're part of our meetings. That's why I encourage people to come to the meetings, find out who the players are, who are the decision makers, who's out there with quality materials that can assist. So we're not just waiting on DC government. We have leveraged all kind of organizations. I don't want to start naming them, because then I miss one and then I'm gonna be in trouble. But there's some out there that are doing good work. They come to our meetings and they're willing to go to churches, to community events, because I can't be out there all the time and our 9 members can't be everywhere. But we have a lot of stakeholders that are willing to go and teach financial education.
So I then therefore assume that the public can reach out to the agency and get a list of resource providers.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, go to the disby.dc.gov website.
Right, thank you. Do you collect any data about the literacy rates for district residents? For instance, the literacy rate, reading rate is what I'm assuming, is it's been inferred that in parts of our city, the rate may be at only 43% of the adult residents reading at a 3rd grade level or higher. So that's what I'm talking about when I ask about the literacy rates. Collect any data?
We have not collected data.
Do you think it would be a good idea or good policy to be concerned with the financial literacy rate of our communities, or the adults in our community?
Yeah, part of, we don't collect it. I mean, it's a monumental task because, we are a non-funded council. Part of our impact, we would love to be able to pull together that information, but not at this time. We don't have the really the bandwidth to do it with the people that we have. But that would be something that would really be wonderful if we could make our case as to why we have to start somewhere, definitely with the schools, so that we can educate people and make it interesting and have the family to engage. We have some kids that come from some hellified situations, but they're really bright. And I always try to give them information to take home to their parents and get them engaged to reach out. I think it's so important, but we just don't have the wherewithal at this point to come up with how many, what percentage of people are nor
Well, I
authoritative
noticed,
data.
I noticed that you indicated that you have no financial resources for running your council.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
we really don't. And one of the things I like to do is just say, if we need something, we just, we make it happen.
So you make it happen without having a line in the DC budget,
Correct.
and you make it
Now,
happen.
I'm hoping, I don't know what the Disney's budget is or whatever. I really don't know what their budget is, but I know like for a fact that, we go around the table and we say, hey, who can, have resources to help with certain things. So it's not affecting. But our
Okay.
council, no, we're not funded.
Okay, so your mission is a fundamental to DISB is what you're telling me. And so you're wrapped in there. Okay.
Yeah, we try to help out because, I mean, there are resources out there, and, people can buy lunch or something, help out, so.
I was just wondering, since your work is so important, how do we get the financial institutions and those that service the public with their financial planning to contribute to the work that you do in the form of perhaps contributions? Maybe you need a foundation that will make this a reality, because it is a very important part of our community growing and expanding, and really giving the residents the wherewithal in order to manage their lives.
Yeah, well, that's how we've been able to survive, is by passing the hat. But it's not big, it's not, a lot of money. But that's what we do to try to help. And I just don't want to mention some of the institutions without having a list of all of them.
All right. Well, you have a financial literacy newsletter, and you do presentations. You have flyers, information that you, paper information, documentation that you distribute, and so that is produced through DISB.
Yes, that is. And you can see some of the in-kind contributions on the, for instance, the Black home ownership program. You could see the institutions that were involved, financial institutions that were involved on the flyers.
So then how many staff are involved in your work? Do you have a assigned staff for your council?
I believe it's my two people that I mentioned earlier, Miss Rebecca Rendell and Miss Michelle Hammonds, two people. And they're just phenomenal to really to help us, because all of the volunteers are full-time employees and we volunteer. So we really rely on the staff, and they get the support from the chair and the chief of staff for DISB.
Mr. Banks, does the council have a 4-year plan of action?
We have I believe it's we did the report, the plan of action with the core recommendations in the latter part of 2021. So that's why in 2022, it was still real fresh. I sent it out to all of the DC council members, and for responses and that kind of thing. And right now we're in the process of upgrading this report for fiscal year 2023, because we want to go ahead and see where are we now. We don't have a lot of answers, to bribe with to come up with the names, the percentage of people that don't understand financial literacy. But we want to be able to enhance in the committees that we have, those 4 committees, to have our new members that are coming on the board this year, 3 new members, to work with us so that we can go ahead and by the end of the year be able to come up with our next report for 2023.
All right, well, I thank you very much for you spending some time with us today and talking about the Financial Literacy Council. Clearly, you have an interest in growing, expanding, and continuing the recommendations of your council implemented within and through the government. And we do too, and we want to try and work with you on getting more robust programmatic response to your recommendations as we indicated.
Chairperson Bonds, it's been a pleasure coming before you. I really appreciate your willing to and your enthusiasm to do something, especially with the children and the returning citizens, and to provide oversight. We really appreciate you. And if you could talk to the council chairman to move things along, that'd be great too.
Yes, sir. I'm going to try to do that. And I want to thank you for the work that you all have, your council has done with our senior citizens, which is also in this committee of executive and labor. I know that we get a lot of input from AARP, but I do know that some of your members also participate and help our seniors. That is a sort of like a territory that we haven't really given a lot of attention to. And I find that with many of our older members of society, they do not always have an understanding of the financial instruments that they're presented with. I've run across a number of people who common sense tells them my family members have their own homes. I may not be here forever. And so therefore, reverse mortgage is the thing I'll do. And then I can go on my trips, my cruises, and what have you. I've heard that a number of times. Then I've heard from others who maybe have property, but they are not really able to look after the properties as they once were able to do, and they want to know what to do. I mean, those are some very clear examples of the concerns that we also get, in the office. And having reliable financial planners and counseling is always needed. So don't forget, my point is, do not forget our senior community, because it is, it's there and it needs help as well.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm a senior myself. I was born in 1950, so I consider myself a senior. But we are really fortunate that the district has the consumer advocate in Mr. Idris Abdullah, pardon me, who is a consumer advocate for senior citizens. And so you could funnel some of your people that reach out to you. We do have an ombudsman that works with the senior citizens to against the fraud and all the kind of predatory things that are happening that they're faced with. So we're fortunate that we do have that in place under DISB, a person that's there that specializes in the seniors.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Mr. Banks.
Thank
Hope to
you.
see you again soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we are now going to turn to our, I think we have a few public presenters. Yeah. We will now turn to the Workforce Investment Council, and we do have 4 public witnesses. Are they all on the? Okay, they're all in the, okay, they're in the waiting room, and we will promote them. Each will have 5 minutes to talk with us. We have Rachel White, Chester Johnson, Crystal Scott, and Claudia Belong. And I will just quickly read. I want to read a little bit about the Workforce Investment Council, which we are going to examine now. And I want to welcome our public witnesses. The district's Workforce Investment Council, or WIC, as it is commonly referred to, is a private sector-led board responsible for advising the district government on the development, implementation, and continuous improvement of an integrated and effective workforce investment system. The WIC serves as both the state and local workforce investment board for the District of Columbia, which are federally required to ensure that funds from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act are spent appropriately. The agency is responsible for the district's 4-year unified state plan for workforce development and plays an important role in the coordination of services provided through the American Job Centers. The WIC also works more broadly to ensure that all the district's workforce investments, both federal and local, are part of a comprehensive and collaborative system supporting district residents and businesses. Additionally, the WIC directly administers several locally and federally funded grants, such as the Employer Partnership Training Grant, the Healthcare and IT Workforce Training Grants, and Career Coach DC. Today, I want the public to learn about how the WIC is supporting our community and helping to improve our workforce system. And again, I'll call for our public witnesses, and we'll start with Ms. Rachel White. She is the Senior Youth Policy Analyst for DC Action, and she'll be followed by Ms. Chester Johnson, who is the CEO of the Academy of Hope Adult Public Charter School, and then Crystal Scott, who is the administrator at Forest Hills of DC, and finally Claudia Belong, who is the Assistant Director of Research for SEIU, United Healthcare Workers East. I think it's local 1199. Welcome, ladies. Looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll start with Ms. White.
Good afternoon. For some reason, I'm having technical difficulties with the video, but hopefully you all can hear me. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, Committee Chair Bonds and members of the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council today by providing testimony regarding the performance of the Workforce Investment Council and its role in ensuring Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, or WIOA, funding is appropriately used to provide employment solutions tailored to the needs of young people. My name is Rachel White, and I am DC Action Senior Youth Policy Analyst. At DC Action, we use research data and a race equity lens to break down barriers that stand in the way of all kids reaching their full potential. Our collaborative advocacy initiatives bring the power of young people and all residents to raise their voices to create change. Through our Youth Economic Justice and Housing Coalition, we advocate with youth and youth-serving organizations in the District of Columbia for policies, funding, and programs that expand access to comprehensive support and services that disconnected youth and youth experiencing homelessness need to successfully transition into stable and productive adulthood. We are also home of DC Kids Count, an online resource that tracks key indicators of child and youth well-being. And just to provide some context around youth experiencing homelessness, for every day a young person waits for housing, they are 2% more likely to re-experience homelessness later in life. And this is a cumulative statistic. So for 2 days of waiting equals 4% more likely to re-experiencing homelessness as an adult. 10 days of waiting, 20% more likely. So one way that we can sort of mitigate this trajectory is by providing youth in the district a pathway to economic freedom in the form of workforce development opportunities created to meet their needs. So the DC Workforce Investment System is led by the WIC, which is the district, state, and local workforce board, and serves to facilitate and coordinate efforts across system-wide agency partners and programs. So as the coordinating and leadership entity over workforce development systems, the DC WIC oversees a host of programs to include the disbursement of Workforce Investment Opportunity Act funding. So the Department of Employment Services serves as the district's fiscal agent and distributes WIOA funds based on relevant policies set by the WIC for youth programming. The major issue that we're seeing is that there's a lack of transparency on how the Department of Employment Services is allocating WIOA funding due to the lack of oversight of DOES by WIC, as evidenced by the report from the Federal Department of Labor. The Department of Labor indicated that WIC is not conducting required oversight of the Department of Employment Services, and that DOES procures youth services without consulting the Workforce Investment Council. We do know that during fiscal year 22, WIC received $4.6 million in WIOA funding for youth programming, but we are unable to determine how and if this funding was actually spent. So looking through WIC's performance oversight responses, we can only identify how roughly $2 million of the dollars have been spent. Without the appropriate oversight, it is highly likely we are missing the mark and perpetuating the gap that exists with connecting youth to workforce development programming. We have attempted to meet with WIC on multiple occasions to address this issue and to receive more clarity over the past fiscal year, but to no avail. So while we understand the Department of Employment Services provides a variety of workforce development programs, none of the existing offerings are appropriate for a segment of the population that could stand to benefit the most from a supportive job, earning a living wage, which are youth experiencing homelessness. So in a 2022 survey conducted by the Youth Economic Justice and Housing Coalition, youth reported there's multiple barriers and challenges they face with accessing current program offerings offered through the Department of Employment Services. Challenges included transportation, lack of childcare, lack of mentors and job coaches, and you can find more challenges listed in my written testimony that I will provide to the coalition. But the good news is we know, not the coalition, the committee, my apologies. The good news is we know what we need to do, but the support and participation of WIC in providing oversight to the Department of Employment Services is instrumental in addressing this issue. Investing in the creation of targeted workforce development programming that meets the unique needs of youth experiencing homelessness, informed by youth and homeless service providers, would enable young people to gain financial independence and stability. We already have a program model in mind that we will talk more about during upcoming budget hearings. We desperately need the cooperation and collaboration between WIC and the Department of Employment Services as we work to improve workforce outcomes to youth experiencing homelessness. Thank you for your time and consideration. Again, my full written testimony will be sent to the committee, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Now we'll hear from Ms. Johnson.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Bonds. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Lysesta Johnson, and I'm the CEO of Academy of Hope Adult Public Charter School. For almost 40 years, AOH has made it possible for Washington, D.C. residents 18 to 70 plus years old to gain the career skills and education needed to pursue viable paths to economic self-sufficiency. Academy of Hope's mission is to provide high-quality adult education and services in a manner that changes lives and improves our communities. Learners at Academy of Hope build skills, prepare for a high school diploma through the GED or the National External Diploma Program, earn industry-recognized certifications, and transition to post-secondary education. I'm here today to highlight how Academy of Hope partners with the Workforce Investment Council to prepare DC residents for jobs in high demand, high growth sectors, and how next year's budget can bolster these efforts. For the last 5 years, Academy of Hope has received Career Pathways Grant, jointly funded by OSSI's Division of Adult and Family Education and the Workforce Investment Council. These grants are partially funded through the Career Pathways Innovation Fund and allow recipients to design, build, and implement workforce training in high demand sectors. AOH leveraged the Career Pathways Grant to launch a multi-level career training program with a specific focus on 3 in-demand industries in 2017: hospitality, office skills administration, and healthcare. Our program-wide integrated education and training model provides learners, especially those who face the most significant barriers to employment and economic success, with contextualized academics and workforce training. Through these programs, learners can earn stackable credentials, helping them to build the skills needed for high-wage competitive careers. Since the onset of the COVID-19 crisis, our offerings have continued to evolve and expand. We now offer CompTIA IT Fundamentals and A+ certification. We have also added a phlebotomy program to our Healthcare Academy. To serve all learners, Academy of Hope built a multi-level program, including robust on-ramps into training through our Workforce Academy program. The Workforce Academy serves all adult learners, beginning readers interested in starting a career or securing a promotion, those advancing towards a high school credential while earning stackable workforce credentials like ServSafe and First Aid, as well as those transitioning into specific occupational instruction, leading to industry-recognized certifications in healthcare and information technology. To ensure that we are effectively preparing learners to launch viable careers, we've worked with a multitude of partners, including, just to name a few, Ingleside Rock Creek, Community IT, Sibley Memorial Hospital. This year, our programs have seen the highest demand to date. In fact, enrollment in our workforce programming has doubled every year for the last 3 years. And we currently have a wait list for our programs. I'm proud to say that we're seeing clear successes. Our CNA learners at AOH have the highest passage rate in the district on the certification exam, and our employment specialists are placing learners directly into positions with our partners and beyond. Today, we have a 70% pass rate on the CompTIA fundamentals exam, and those learners have progressed into the next level of programming of A+ certification. In wrapping up my testimony, I'd like to underscore the role that OSSI and the Workforce Investment Council played in planting seeds for our workforce programs. The Career Pathways Innovation Fund allowed AOH to pilot and scale integrated education and technology training programs that equip learners with all skill levels and credentials that need to meet their educational and career goals at one time and in one place. We encourage the mayor and the council to protect the Career Pathways Innovation Fund for the FY24 budget. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. And now we'll turn to Ms. Balog.
Thank you, Chairperson Bonds, members of the committee and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. My name is Claudia Balag. I'm the Assistant Director of Research at 1199 SEIU, representing thousands of healthcare workers in hospitals, clinics, and skilled nursing facilities in the district. The 2022 DC Healthcare Workforce Partnerships Annual Healthcare Occupations Report notes that nursing assistants are the top needed job title in the district. The annual report was great because it centered the long-standing racial inequities that are built into our healthcare system, particularly in the direct care workforce that cares for our elderly and disabled. 91% of direct service workers in the region are Black or African American. Women constitute most of the workers across these care settings, and many are immigrants. In DC, nearly 1 in 5 of these workers live in poverty, and 63% rely on public assistance. There's a shortage of home health aides and CNAs in the district, but it's not new. The pandemic has exacerbated the problem. Meanwhile, the number of adults over 65 in the district will increase by nearly 25% within this decade. PHI is a leading advocacy organization looking at this workforce and has projections that are startling. Between 2020 and 2030 in this decade, we will need hundreds of new CNAs and over 3,000 new home health aides. But when you take into account the normal rates of worker turnover, there will be 23,000 job openings for CNAs and home health aides during this decade. Now, our members include CNAs at nursing homes who often moonlight as home health aides to make ends meet because their wages are too low. And CNAs face steep challenges in the jobs that they are charged with in nursing homes because they're working so short-staffed. We're asking certified caregivers to care for too many residents during their shifts. Now, I'm going to talk about solutions. There's 2 categories. There's a category of wages and training. Now, on wages, the Workforce Investment Council has in the past defined, for grant eligibility purposes, a competitive starting salary that's at least 120% of the minimum wage. Our Department of Healthcare Finance is investing some money in wages for home health aides and home and community-based services. Those wages are going to average $18.15 an hour. This is not going to be enough to move the needle for our needs. Our nursing home members tell us that honestly, they could make more money working at McDonald's than doing the care work that they currently are employed in. 1199 is joining the DC Long-Term Care Coalition and the Fair Budget Coalition to urge leaders to support raising the minimum wage of direct care workers across all care settings to $24 an hour. Our average housing costs mean that district residents will not be able to do this work and afford to live in the district if we don't make a change. And there's lots of states that we can follow the lead on. New Jersey, Michigan, Tennessee, New York, Florida, Louisiana, Colorado, forgive me for the long list, but all of these states have established new wage floors for these caregivers. Now, the second piece is training. Our members in skilled nursing facilities report that they're caring for residents with higher acuity needs, on ventilators, with trachs who need wound care or in memory units, and the higher demands of the job requires that the higher acuity levels of training that should be reflected in their pay. The current investments of the Workforce Investment Council in the healthcare sector just aren't robust enough to meet the needs we face. We're aware of one WIC training program supported by federal funds that's only trained 20 new direct caregivers. Also, not a single training program to boost the number of certified medication aides who are in high demand and short supply in the district has been approved or funded. So we say that the district must prioritize career ladders for healthcare workers. 1199 has a training and upgrading fund which actively supports initiatives such as creating career tracks for entry-level healthcare workers. But I want to make one point clear. These jobs should be valued on their own. And this is where the legacy of Jim Crow is really clear. And this is what we think equity really means. Now, some states are doing really innovative work on training. I'm just going to briefly mention Tennessee, and I'll provide written testimony with more detail. Their Board of Regents is going to work in collaboration with their Medicaid agency to create a career ladder where every additional certification that worker receives, if they're in the Medicaid program as an employee, they will receive a pay bump. In closing, the first step to fixing these problems would be creating a structure for multi-agency collaboration. The investment in our healthcare workforce requires all kinds of agencies in the district: Department of Healthcare Finance, DOES, Board of Nursing, OSSI, the Workforce Investment Council. We hope that leaders in the district will support our efforts to break down these agency silos. I'll stop there. I want to thank you for your continued support and the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you very much to this panel. And I will start with you, Ms. Belong. I wanted to make sure that I understand. I know what you're saying about wages. You want the wages for your workers to be $24 an hour, correct? Okay.
For all workers, not just ours, but we want to set new wage standards for healthcare workers in the industry.
Yes, at $24 an hour, right?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, and then the size, you didn't give me an indication of the size of their workload. Are we talking 2 people, 3 people, 20 people?
Oh, in skilled nursing facilities, we have
Mhm.
members. So we have a member who testified before the performance oversight hearing for Department of Healthcare Finance. A CNA at one of our skilled nursing facilities has been charged with caring for as many as 16 residents by herself in one shift. Workers are really strapped, and this is across the country, but certainly across the district. The numbers are the same. What ends up happening is CNAs bear the brunt of caregiving, and a lot of times what will happen is the skilled nursing facility will have to spend more on the outside to hire temporary staffers from staffing agencies to fill in those gaps, which is problematic. Number one, they cost more, but number two, it really diminishes the quality of care in a nursing home. Continuity of care is so crucial. And on the home health aid side, we don't represent home health workers, but I could say that there is a real problem with people who need services, and agencies are having a very challenging time staffing the needs of district residents who qualify for those Medicaid home and community-based services.
Okay, so the wage that we're speaking of, the $24 an hour, you are advocating that be the wage for the home care aid, or is it for the skilled nursing aid?
We're actually for both. We're saying that if you're a certified home health aide, if you're a certified nurse aide, regardless of your care setting, and also if you're a direct support professional in the DDS program, we believe that these caregivers require a new wage floor, that we're having such a hard problem with recruitment, but more importantly, retention of these workers. And we think that addressing it by wages is the answer. So setting a new wage floor, and some of the ideas of the Long-Term Care Coalition, who I believe will be submitting testimony, could there be legislation that sets a new living wage, like a living wage act for direct care workers? States have done this. There are states they've approached it in different ways, but there are a number of states around the country that made a very concerted effort to say we need to raise the wages of direct care workers, meaning both certified nurse assistants and home health aides.
All right. Again, the number of persons to care for in a skilled nursing facility, is it 2? Is it 10? Is it 20 for one CNA?
I believe off the top of my head, I believe it's 15 that a CNA should not be charged. Well, actually, it's not just a CNA, but it's a formula of hours of bedside care that captures how many people are working in a skilled nursing facility who are authorized to provide care, and that includes CNAs. And every resident in a skilled nursing facility must receive, it varies around the country, but must receive a standard number of hours of bedside care. And then there's a staffing ratio that says that no caregiver can be charged with caring for more than 15 residents on a shift.
Okay.
And that's where things get tricky, because I know that this, from the industry perspective, they struggle to meet those standards. They hire temp workers to meet those standards. And that's why the Long-Term Care Coalition is pretty unique on this issue, because you'll find labor folks like 1199 SEIU advocating for the same policy solutions as the industry, as the nursing home owners, and as educators. I'm so happy to see Academy of Hope here. Like, we're all sort of in this together, fighting to bolster this workforce with all of the tools that we can muster.
All right, thank you. I'm looking at the DC Coalition of Long-Term Care document, and it says to modernize the regulations. And one of the proposals is to amend the Health Occupations Regulations Act to, one, lower the minimum age for all direct care workers to 16. So you're advocating for that, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And then to allow those seeking to enter the healthcare workforce as direct care workers to acquire skills through on-the-job training through a registered apprenticeship programs.
Yes.
And then to direct DC Health to eliminate barriers that make it difficult for out-of-state direct care workers, medication aides, and nurses to become credentialed, licensed in the district. You're advocating for all of this.
Correct. Yep.
All right.
These are all pieces of the puzzle.
All right. I just want to make sure that I've.
Yes.
We don't have, we have some testimony, but the testimony is not the testimony you gave verbally. So I
yes, and
make
I
sure
didn't want to
that
represent
I
myself
put
as
all your
the
little
Long-Term
pieces
Care
together.
Coalition.
Thank you so very much.
I understand.
Thank you. And Ms. Johnson, I really wanted to ask you about, and thank you for your testimony as well. Career Paths Innovation Fund. It allows recipients to design, build, and implement workforce training tracks in high demand sectors. Tell me what that statement really,
What that means.
to inform us of.
Yeah, well, it's been a great tool. So Academy of Hope is most known for its work in adult literacy. So I was very happy to hear your questions about individuals with low literacy, and that's been our history of working with those with adults who are struggling with basic skills. And the Career Pathway Innovation Fund really leveraged dollars between WIOA dollars and local dollars to help individuals with low levels of literacy to fully participate in workforce programming. So we are able to create on-ramps for those learners with beginning literacy skills to really start to work towards those credentials. And we've had a number of learners, so about 90% of our learners do not have a high school diploma when they come to our program. And we've been able to help our learners increase their academic skills, but also get the workforce credentials that they need. So at the same time, by the time they earn their high school credential and get through a workforce training program, they graduate with a high school diploma and a workforce credential and can move quickly on to the next step into the workforce. And that's been the beauty of those dollars coming together and providing the support to individuals who may go to typical workforce programs without a high school credential or the literacy skills and can't get the supports they need to achieve their career goals. And that's been the beauty of those dollars. And it helped us in 2017 to launch our workforce programs and to really build out this integrated academics and workforce programming.
So, Ms. Johnson, thank you very much for that. That's great. You mentioned that you work closely with your employer partners, including Ingleside at Rock Creek, Community IT Solutions, Sibley Memorial Hospital, and Children's Hospital, to name a few. Are for those positions, are they exclusively IT positions, or are there other positions?
There are combinations. So our healthcare partners, of course, we're doing the certified nurse assistant training program, and we can't produce enough for the demand, to be honest. The classes are small and require a lot of nurse. We can talk more about the shortage of nursing and nurse instructors and the cost of that. But we are largely producing certified nurse assistants and phlebotomists. And our IT program, which is our newest addition, we're about 2 years into that, where we build progression. So someone starts in what's called the IT fundamentals, build those foundational skills, and then move into A+ certification. So our partners there are Community IT and another IT company that we're working with, having those learners do their work-based learning, but also moving into employment.
Okay, and for the IT, they move into programming AT+.
Yes, A+. They'll start in the fundamentals course, which is a foundational course. But there is a certification. So even for learners who earn that certification, which is an entry-level certification, there's such a demand for IT workers with even those fundamental certifications. They're able to become employed in some of the IT support positions with our partners. But ultimately, what we're working towards is getting those graduates the A+ certification, where they can even demand even higher wages.
Right. So in FY 22, I know this is not to examine you, but I want to ask you, in FY 22, approximately how many nurses did you produce through your training programs?
We produced about 20 nurse aides during that time. I mean, that's the pipeline. We need to offer a ton more sections for that. It's not a high volume. I think you've heard that from Claudia. The amount, in order for us to do that, and the ratios in the classroom. So there's the classroom instruction, skills-based instruction, clinicals, and then they said for the exam. So it wasn't a ton. It's certainly not enough to meet the need. We need more people training. We need to add more sections to be able to produce the volume of CNAs that are needed in the field.
So for the nurses, your organization, the Academy of Hope, is concerned with the classroom, or what part of the 4 steps you just mentioned do you do, or do you do them all?
We do them all. So we do the classroom instruction, and we work with our partners to have our folks who finish, there's a whole process, finish those skills pieces to go and do their clinical. So the timeline is pretty long. And we've designed our program, it's free, one, and our goal is to make it accessible for all learners. So while there is a certain number of instructional hours, we teach the course for an entire semester. And that makes it easier for people who are coming in who may need the additional skill supports to be able to get through the course, to have the time to move through that. So that's a longer part of that. We also have to schedule exams. I don't think anybody here, there have been some issues with getting the certifying exam scheduled. There was a provider change, and so over the last year, It's been a little challenging to get folks through and to sit for an exam. The wait time has been challenging. And of course, COVID had a major impact. In fact, our first cohort of CNA graduates could not do clinicals for over 6 months because they couldn't get into the facilities to do that because of COVID. So we had a group of graduates waiting in 2020, waited up until I think it was January 2021 to be able to do their clinicals, and then they were able to sit for their exam. So we are recovering from COVID and really starting to ramp up at this point. And honestly, the funding that we're receiving from WIC has helped us to expand our sections. So we're looking at a much larger group of graduates. At the conclusion of this year, we will be able to double that number, with the number of sections and the new nurse instructors we were able to hire.
Okay, so Ms. Johnson, if I wanted to participate in your nursing training program to become a certified CNA, from day one to the certified exam, completing that process, what's the time frame and what's the financial resource that you have expended on me to train me to do this wonderful work?
Okay, so you are looking at about let me check, 3 months for instruction, a week. You're looking at about a 4 to 5 month period from entry, getting through the coursework, doing your clinicals, and then sitting for an exam. That's ideal. That's provided nothing happens. You don't have to stop out. You can get through the program within, I would say 6 months. I would give it a solid 6 months and start working with an employer because the demand is so high for you to afford the CNAs.
And so
then
6 months, is that once a week, twice a week, or 5 days a week?
Yeah, they're coming, our program is intensive. So they're coming anywhere from 3 to 4 days a week with us. So they're doing the lecture piece and then they're doing the skills-based piece. And that's how we're able to ensure that folks have the skills, they know what they're doing and are able to get through that exam successfully. So we expand our training program a little longer because it's what we do to make sure that learners who need the greatest support are able to get through the program. We can run a very short-term program.
All right, and so this 6 months.
Yes.
How much money have you spent on me to train me and get me educated to do this work?
To get you educated, and we are just doing these numbers because we're looking at the cost of it. We are running anywhere from 8 to 11,000 per person to get them through. I mean, we're intensive because that includes from intake, training to job placement.
Right. Thank you very much. That's important. Now I'm now changed. I want to do IT. I want to become a certified IT worker. So what's the time frame for that?
That one takes about the same time, but it all depends on how getting through the exam. I think most IT training folks will tell you getting through the CompTIA and A+ exam takes a lot of work. So if you're coming in without any context for the work, that fundamentals course, we're going to recommend that you do that. You can get through the fundamentals within that 6 month period because we do want you to get some work experience through some sort of work-based learning. And then you're going to sit for that exam. So we're looking at about the same amount of time for the first level. And then there's the A+ certification, which is the highest level you can, we're pushing folks to do. That can take an additional, 4 to 5 months and an exam as well.
All right. And so you've spent, again, 11,000 on me, or you're spending a little more?
We're gonna spend a little more because we cover the cost of the exam, which is about $200 per person to do that. I may be I'm sure my workforce people are gonna say, you're wrong, it's 300. But yes, it's gonna cost us for the exam and the placement as well.
I really thank you for these numbers and this time frame, because as you, both of you have very well stated, one of the biggest concerns that we have is trying to get more DC residents engaged in occupations where they can grow and be successful at. And you didn't tell me I had to be a brilliant student or anything like that, just an ordinary person with a desire and an interest, motivated to do well, to serve the community. Okay, that's what I needed to hear. So I have a clear understanding. Obviously, I'm new to this committee. You've probably done this numerous times, so forgive me for asking the elementary questions, but I just really want the public to understand, we can do this. We just need the resources to get it done. And so so I appreciate so much hearing from you all. Let me just check with my staff. I may have omitted a question or two, just to be sure. Right. So I want to thank you again so much. And I know that SEIU is listening, and you're going to provide us with your testimony. All right. And if you want to give us any examples, and of course, Ms. Johnson, if you want to provide some other examples, sure. I'm sure that the resources that we expend now are not nearly as much as we need to do in order to prepare our people for these job opportunities and career moving forward. Let me ask you, do you do any career coaching? I've got my jobs now. Okay, I'm two people now. I got my jobs. Is someone going to monitor me and make sure that I'm comfortable and that I'm growing and that I'm not bad habits don't begin to set in?
Yes, our employment specialists do all of that. It's a pre-employment, interview coaching, resume work, interview coaching, placement, and then the follow-up with those individuals once they've been placed. We are working right now on a career pathways, because we know, as Claudia mentioned, we want especially our certified nurse assistants to continue progressing in the field, because the wages are not a living wage. Now, if we can raise the wages, that would be a great way, because we do have people who are very interested in making working with elderly a career path for them, but it is difficult to get the pay. So part of what we're doing now is really helping our graduates to map the next step. What's the next credential? What's the additional education you need to continue to grow and progress in the field?
Hey, well, thank you very much. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. We will now hear from our government witness. The Executive Director of the WIC, the Workforce Investment Council. And all right, and I see she has staff with her. So Ms. Smith, we're very happy to have you here and have your staff, your team with you. And so if you will raise your right hand, we will, okay, swear you in. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be truthful and complete? Thank you very much. All right, you can begin when you are ready.
Great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Councilmember Bonds and staff of the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor. I'm Anna Smith, Executive Director of the DC Workforce Investment Council. Thank you for inviting me to testify today on the work and accomplishments of the WIC in fiscal year 2022 and 2023 to date. I'm humbled by the opportunity to continue serving DC residents in this role. The Workforce Investment Council serves as the backbone of the public workforce development system. Under Mayor Bowser's leadership, alongside the Deputy Mayor for Education and colleagues in the education and workforce system, and in partnership with organizations in the private and nonprofit sectors, we remain focused on delivering a workforce system that is aligned, coherent, accessible, and that works for all, especially those who are most at risk of being left behind as the economy recovers. We continue to work each day to ensure that every young person and adult is on a pathway to a self or family sustaining career by connecting district residents to education, skills-based training, and supportive services in ways that optimize their access, progress, and success. Over the past year, and to continue in the year ahead, the WIC expanded and deepened its roles to provide leadership, oversight, resources, and innovation to ensure that we emerge a stronger and more equitable community as the district makes its comeback following the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to meeting the immediate needs of our customers, job seekers, employers, and government agency partners, we remain focused on building a workforce system where employers are driving the demand, informing and hiring individuals completing workforce training. Education and training providers are offering programs that lead to credentials, experience, and employment in high-demand occupations in our highest growth sectors. And district agencies and community partners weave a net of supportive and aligned services that ensure residents can connect to opportunities and find stable, sustaining careers. To support an inclusive jobs recovery, we and our education and workforce development partners are keenly focused on establishing employer-driven partnerships, expanding access to high-impact education and workforce credentials, and broadening opportunities for paid opportunities to learn at work. I'm grateful for the commitment and investments of Mayor Bowser and the council in supporting our agency and our work. I take seriously the responsibility for meeting the high expectations that have been set and look forward to sharing updates about our progress to date. The WIC, as the state and local workforce board for the district, is responsible for ensuring that the wealth of resources and programs that exist throughout our community are aligned and delivering at the highest level for our residents and businesses. Through historic investments by Mayor Bowser and the council, we have significantly increased our capacity to support greater interagency and external coordination. We have brought on incredibly talented and diverse individuals with local and national experience in workforce development. And we are building a strong culture and an organization grounded in the goals of service and sustainability. We have built a small but strong team that has been able to rapidly develop and deploy innovative new grant programs while remaining focused on oversight, tracking, and implementation in ways that maximize the impact of these resources. The accomplishments of the past year that I will highlight in my testimony would not have been possible without the support and resources provided by Mayor Bowser and the council. I'm grateful for this investment and proud to share how we will continue to steward these resources and this responsibility on behalf of district residents. As Mayor Bowser recently shared in DC's comeback plan, a 5-year economic development plan for the district, we strive to be a place where people choose to live, work, visit, and thrive, and to be a city where every neighborhood offers its residents of all races and genders the chance to achieve their full potential. In support of this vision, the WIC supports several initiatives to ensure residents are prepared for and connected to high demand, good jobs, and employers are connected to the talented workforce they require. They include employer-led partnerships. Employers are a critical part of a demand-driven workforce system as they are the experts on identifying the needs of their businesses and industry and can play a critical role in informing education and training that leads to credentials of value and leads residents completing training in the district to employment and good jobs and on pathways to meaningful careers. Some of the WIC's initiatives to engage and partner with employers include the Healthcare Workforce Partnership that you heard a little bit about earlier. It's a healthcare intermediary grant awarded to the DC Hospital Association, begun in fiscal year 21. And that group convenes healthcare employers and recommends and implements strategies to support a robust healthcare workforce in DC that expands pathways for residents in this high demand field. The Workforce Partnership has facilitated collaboration across more than 50 employers from throughout the healthcare sector, produced sector reports for the last 2 years, with quantitative and qualitative data about the needs of the employers and workers in this sector, and has informed training investments targeting hard to fill roles. In 2022, the WIC launched the Information Technology Occupational Advisory Board. This board consists of 14 individuals representing 9 technology firms, government partners, and community-based training organizations. The goal of the advisory board is to inform sector-based investments and to lead to greater coordination across disparate programs, initiatives, and training opportunities within the IT sector. In 2022, the WIC launched an innovative training program designed to partner with employers to help them develop new pipelines of talent or upskill existing workers to help them fill critical shortage areas in high demand industries, including construction, hospitality, education, and insurance. The WIC awarded more than $3.7 million to 6 grantees, 5 of whom continue to deliver their training programs in fiscal year 2023. To date, nearly 200 individuals have completed training through these programs. And for those reporting employment upon completion of training or earning their credential, their average earnings range from $22 to $32 an hour. As the WIC seeks to partner with employers in new and innovative ways, we launched and recently awarded the Talent Development Technical Assistance Grant. The WIC has awarded District Bridges a grant of $500,000 to develop district-specific inclusive hiring resources, tools, and trainings, and provide direct, individual, and cohort-based technical assistance to DC businesses seeking to implement equity-centered talent development practices. It will also seek to connect businesses and residents participating in other WIC grant programs to related resources and opportunities. Career Coach DC. Launched in the summer of 2022 in response to a survey of thousands of unemployed workers impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, Career Coach DC seeks to add capacity to existing workforce development programs and provide free virtual career coaching services to residents with in-person locations at public library and enterprise community development apartment complexes, with locations in wards 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8. Through services accessible online, by phone, or in person, DC residents that have not yet completed a bachelor's degree can receive assessment, case management, and navigation support. Coaches help residents develop an individualized career plan and take steps to achieve their goals by connecting them to education, training, and employment. With more than 1,300 individuals connecting to the program and 625 residents having received or actively receiving coaching in the last 7 months, the WIC will continue to expand this work in the remainder of fiscal year 23. Scaling high-quality IT and healthcare training. Heard a little bit about this already so far today, but happy to talk about it more. Begun last year, WIC awarded more than $5.5 million in funding to 15 grantees, offering no-cost workforce development training to DC residents, many including stipends to participants to cover costs of transportation or childcare to help students focus on successful completion of their programs. Many of these grantees continue to provide training through the end of fiscal year 2023, so final outcomes aren't yet available. However, to date, more than 300 individuals have enrolled in WIC-funded IT and healthcare training and are on track to earn credentials such as CompTIA, Security Plus, Amazon Web Services, Certified Nursing Assistant, and Home Health Aide. With landmark investments by Mayor Bowser in education, training, supportive services, and relief designed to help residents and employers fuel our city's comeback, coordination and alignment across government and across the public and private sectors is critical to ensure we are maximizing the impact of our resources. The WIC is responsible for developing and overseeing implementation of a plan that looks across many of these investments. The district's unified WIO estate plan. The current plan concludes early next year, and the WIC facilitates working groups aligned with the plan's goals, tracks and drives implementation of the strategies identified in the plan, and in fiscal year 2023, we'll begin to engage partners and the community in a process to develop the district's next 4-year state plan. Some of our other systems building work includes, through our working groups, having developed landscape analyses, we've delivered large-scale virtual hiring events for residents. We are developing standards for workforce training program quality, and we are developing recommendations for technical assistance and engagement with education, training, and community-based organizations. In the last year, the WIC has hosted 2 community-based organization roundtables, during which we brought together dozens of representatives of organizations providing services to residents throughout the district, sharing information about resources, labor market information, and ways residents can better connect with existing tools to support their work. The WIC has partnered with employer-led organizations like Hire Local DC, an initiative of the Federal City Council and DC Chamber of Commerce, to share best practices for convening sector intermediaries and to engage employers in informing workforce training. With support from the one-stop operator, a contractor of the WIC, and a required function of the American Job Center, we bring together 30 to 40 representatives of the 8 required American Job Center partners weekly to identify opportunities for alignment and to problem solve challenges that arise in serving our respective and shared customers. The 8 required agency partners are the Department of Employment Services, the Department of Disability Services, Department of Human Services, Office of the State Superintendent of Education, UDC, DC Housing Authority, Potomac Job Corps, and the National Caucus and Center on Black Aging, a senior community service employment grantee. We continue to develop and modernize the data infrastructure of the workforce development system, building the systems necessary to analyze and report on workforce development programs and outcomes. The WIC this year supported the transition from Data Vault to My Journey DC, a comprehensive platform that includes a community catalog of more than 70 organizations and 200 workforce programs available to DC residents. Through My Journey DC, agency staff can refer an individual between agencies and programs, ensuring we are meeting the needs of the whole person. We also launched the participant portal function of My Journey DC, allowing residents or caseworkers to self-refer to services and programs in and outside of government. In 2022, more than 1,000 referrals were made, with the top 3 services being those sought, including career coaching services, job readiness assistance, and occupational skills training. The WIC continues to develop and refine the Workforce Development System Expenditure Guide, data, and an accompanying report on the work of 15 agencies delivering workforce development services to thousands of residents across more than 80 workforce programs. The WIC began developing this report in fiscal year 19 and will deliver the FY22 report to the council in the coming weeks. This information is critical to our ability to assess our progress and continuously improve our work. While I'm incredibly proud of the work accomplished by the WIC board, my team, our partner agencies in this past year, we know that there is still much work to be done. I look forward to working with the council, the members of our board, and all of our partners as we do the hard work to realize and deliver on this vision. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And thank you for being here with us today. We do have a number of questions, but first I want to thank you for your very adequate response. I think my staff said something like maybe 1,000 pages. That's not really necessary, but I want the public to know that the WIC is a very serious organization in our government and is working every day, every minute to really help people realize an opportunity for a career. So I want to thank you very, very much for that.
Thank you.
Indeed. I do have a few questions, and let's talk about where you, on page 6 of your testimony, you say you bring together 30 to 40 representatives of the 8 required American Jobs Centers partner weekly. What do they do in those? Is this a weekly meeting? I'm assuming
A call. Yes.
a call. Okay. And so is the goal to design the next virtual hiring event or jobs fair, or is it to talk about the data that you're collecting? You mentioned that you collect data, a lot of data about the progress that we're making in the city, or is it about like in my office, we have a number, we receive what we call complaints, individuals saying, oh, I wanted to do this, or I tried to do this. I'm just trying to understand the nature of this weekly, as you say, call.
Sure. That's a great question. And for those who are learning about the American Job Center, and I applaud and appreciate your statement about helping our residents understand these resources. Glad to elaborate further. So as many folks probably know, we have 4 American Job Center locations here in DC throughout the city. Those American Job Centers are one of the requirements and one of the services offered under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. You say WIOA, try to get away from too much jargon, but the Workforce Act really is desiring to make a system where there's lots of different programs funded from multiple federal agencies that go to many of our district government agencies and provide services to discrete populations of people. right? We've got, as I shared, Department of Human Services, and they're providing housing and SNAP and TANF and other resources, disability services, providing vocational rehabilitation efforts, OSSI offering career technical education, and of course, the critical work that DOES does around employment training opportunities. And so the WIC, as the state and local workforce board, is charged with ensuring that all of the folks that are required to provide those services are doing it in a way that makes sense for our residents, that's coordinated and aligned. And so as I shared, we have a one-stop operator, we have a contractor. Our contractor right now is America Works, and they have staff that work on behalf of the WIC and behalf of the system that organize these calls, organize agendas, and they may run the gamut. They might be about data and looking at who's coming into our American job centers. One of the critical areas we've been focusing on in the last couple of years is the shift to virtual services, right? More and more residents have become acclimated and are seeking services virtually. And so how we provide those tools through the American Job Center coordination meetings, we call them our AJC weekly calls. We identify opportunities for collaboration. So one good example would also be, and I can share the date and information with you later, but we're working with our CSEP grantee and CBA. They're also a required partner. Last year, we worked with them and DHS. DHS had laptops. CSEP needed laptops for their participants. We made that connection partially through that call because it is an opportunity to identify challenges that they're facing and also different opportunities that each agency is hosting. So DOES might be having a job fair. How can OSSI or some of our community-based organizations pipeline their participants into that opportunity? And so it's really making those connections. But upcoming, there's going to be a hiring fair by NCBA and for some of our older residents. And we connected those individuals with our career coaching services so that they're even more prepared as they head into that hiring opportunity. And so really it's an opportunity to collaborate, to problem solve, and to align.
All right, so it sounds like that entity that you convene on a weekly basis tries its best to stay on top of the workforce needs and to address them as quickly and as creatively as you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted the public to have a broad sense of what we're talking about and the value of the WIC. Because usually we hear from individuals that will say, well, I went to a DOES hiring fair. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen next. And so I want them to understand that the hiring fair is just a phase, a part of the overall. Of course, they want a job. And so you're also explaining to us that there are opportunities for training as well through the activities that you engage in or you coordinate through the WIC.
Absolutely.
So I wanted that to be clear.
Just, if I might, just to
Yes,
elaborate
sure.
a little bit more on that, and I believe we sent you information, and I mentioned in my testimony, the Workforce Development Expenditure Guide, just to put a fine point on this, right? There are a lot of different populations, and I'm excited that, folks talking about our youth and talking about returning citizens and individuals with disabilities, the various agencies throughout our government that are doing so many great things, right? From our colleague who spoke earlier about the Financial Literacy Council, there are more than a dozen, up to 15 to 16 agencies every year in DC government that are delivering workforce development in some way, shape, or form. And so our guide brings that together through the coordination with those partners. We're able to look across all of the different resources that we're making available to residents and making sure that we're being even more efficient and effective with those, and connecting people to the right opportunities is really at the core of what we are seeking to do.
Okay, so in FY22, can you inform us as to the number of individuals that DC residents that you have helped to go through training and who benefited from the training
Sure.
enough so that they have a job and that they've been on the job for at least, let's say, 6 months?
So I can't quite get to that last one because some of these programs are still ongoing and haven't yet reached that 6-month milestone, but we are very focused on retention. I think that is something that we heard earlier from some of our public witnesses. But I can give you some high level numbers. We have this in our reports but essentially last year and so far we have obligated around $10 million, much of which is a surge and an investment made by Mayor Bowser from our state and local recovery funds, so our ARPA COVID recovery funds, to train about 1,300 residents. And that's the 1,300 identified by our grantees. So all of these programs went out by grant dollars. And this is what those organizations have said that they aspire with our resources to provide training to do. And that includes training, construction, insurance, IT, education, and healthcare. So only one of our grant programs has concluded. So we wanted to make sure, and we hear from our training participants that our training providers that having consistency and stability in funding is really important. Something that we know is challenging with our funding cycles. But our grants, that we were able to make those for crossing the fiscal year. So many of our programs, all of our IT and healthcare training programs began in 22, but won't conclude until the end of fiscal year 23. And so that's where I was sharing. So far to date, we've had over 600 people enrolled in our training programs across the board. About 300 have fully completed training. Now, many of them are, as Ms. Johnson said earlier, there's sometimes a gap between when they can actually take the credential, when they can, go get employed. Some people will get employed before they finish the credential, but about 300 are completed. And we know we've gotten concrete data around people who have become employed, but we expect this number will rise, and that's more than 85 folks. 97 have obtained employment confirmed so far. But we know that there are a lot of people who are continuing the training. Training will conclude at the end of September, and by this time next year, we'll have hopefully a lot more robust data.
Okay, so you're telling me that 600 enrolled in various programs.
Correct.
300 completed and 97 are currently employed, and it's a possibility you could have more that become employed.
There will be more completers and there
Okay.
will be more employed. Yes.
Okay, all right. And so are you also saying that the tab or the cost for that is $10 million?
So that's where, again, and Ms. Johnson and Claudia spoke to this a little bit. All of these programs are continuing, right? So the $10 million is what we've put out so far. The grant awards versus how much they actually spend, right? So we've been working with grantees to try to make sure that they're fully enrolled, right? So they might get a grant from us for $1 million, but in the first year have underspent a little bit. So we can't quite give you the full cost per person so far, but I do have some estimated ranges. Like this is the challenge in workforce data reporting, is it's a moment in time. And that moment in time often changes when we have more information or where people are in the process. But I can say that for our cost per person ranged from about $6,000 per person, give or take $6,500, to up to $16,000. Now, each program included different opportunities for stipends. I think this is one of the things that we were really particularly excited to be able to provide with these federal resources, was even greater flexibility. We know that residents have challenges, hurdles, financial obligations that they are responsible for, even while they're seeking to access greater credentials and employment opportunities. And so the majority of our programs offer stipends on average of $700, $750 for a stipend per person. They also include the costs for on-the-job training or internship or clinical skills work as well. So anywhere between $6,500 and $16,000.
Okay, I appreciate having that. That helps me understand what it would take in the way of dollars to do a massive push to get more people employed. And in your data collection, I wonder you have a sense of the systems that are required, like the recruitment, pre-preparation or whatever that might be, the formal instruction. Just wondered if there was some way to break these so-called phases down, and if you could indicate, well, what phases seem to be working the best? Is it the recruitment? Because you gave me big numbers, you said.
659 have
Yeah.
been enrolled so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if it's 659, sounds to me, just looking in, I would think, well, okay, they can recruit, your grantees, they know how to recruit, but do they know how to finish the job? And that is to get a individual through the training, the preparation, the training and what have you, the certification, some have to, go through the exam period, and then to actually, but do they know how to really get a person a job? So I'm just trying to walk through this.
Sure. And I think the challenge is it's often comparing apples to oranges to pineapples to bananas. Who are we talking about? Which types of individuals are we serving? Are we serving a youth who has or hasn't completed a high school diploma and where their starting point is? Is it an adult who is currently employed but seeking to connect to a higher wage or make a shift into a different career? Or is it someone with multiple significant barriers to employment that has been unemployed for an extended period, or someone like some of our returning citizens facing various challenges that have to be addressed before they can even enroll in a program? And so it's hard to generalize across, but I think I understand the basics of what your question is. I think it's the right one. I think I will say there has been a challenge, and we've sought out collaboration with our regional and national partners to try to identify some of the ways in which to encourage people. But the labor market is shifting and changing, and people wanting to be remote, and what types of jobs and understanding of careers exist, and how to get people excited about these industries. And so I think this is one of the places where really having employers come to the table has been a critical part, because while yes, we have enrolled 659 people, but there's still room in some of these programs. And so how do we help someone know that, hey, construction creates career opportunities that could lead to six-figure salaries, but you've got to want to be in construction. And is there a perception, a negative, a positive perception? Do you know anyone that's worked in the field? And so the Higher Local DC Coalition, Federal City Council have launched a construction intermediary. The WIC has launched a healthcare workforce intermediary. We have launched a website in partnership with them of attracting people into these jobs. So first and foremost, I think it is back to our middle school, high school, career technical education, exposure and awareness of careers, right? And so this is where having people of all backgrounds understand what those opportunities are and how to get them. I think there's work to be done there, but I think we're making progress in some areas in particular. And then frankly, I think it is often about the matching, right? Like a person's personal interests. What do they enjoy doing? What's the match for their interests, their skills, their experiences? Because I could tell you, great, you could work in construction, Councilmember Bonds, but you might be like, that's not at all what I want to do, or not where my skills lie. And so we can say that there's lots of jobs in IT and healthcare, but not actually have that be the match for people. And so that's where our Career Coach DC program has come into play, where we are offering that kind of very front end service to residents who may not even know, am I ready to work? What kind of work do I want to do? Do I want to go to an adult public charter school? Do I want to go to a shorter term, 12-week training program? Do I want to enroll at UDC or the Workforce Development Lifelong Learning Program at UDC? And so our career coaches are providing that sort of assessment and service, identifying with individuals their own interests, what their barriers and challenges are. And so I think that piece of like helping people navigate and then connect to all the things we have is one that our survey a couple of years ago indicated is a great area of need, and one that we've been targeting. So those are on the front end. And then I would say it's industry by industry, right? Healthcare, there are challenges with regard to a limited number of organizations actually offering training. I think one of the public witnesses mentioned not having medication assistants, CMAs. There are less than a dozen licensed training providers offering any sub-baccalaureate healthcare training, less than 12. That's it, right? And so that's another thing that we've been trying to focus on is how are we getting more opportunities for training? How are we investing in that? Because I think in healthcare, there's the challenge sometimes about when they can take an exam. In IT, often we are finding literacy and numeracy skills that need to be rebuilt. And so we really have left through our grantees the flexibility to say, hey, who and what population of folks are you targeting and which communities? What types of needs will they have? The grantees said to us, here are the types of services, the wraparound services, the stipend. Many of them are offering financial literacy and numeracy skills to help build up other areas of strength. And then coaching and placement services on the back end. But often it is based on what industry or what credential they're being prepared for.
You have told me so much.
Sorry, that was a lot.
And I appreciate that. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about the different systems that obviously are working simultaneously. And it leads me to wonder if we want to get the 659 enrolled in programs up, do we concentrate maybe 2 months on the enrollment and then move to the next phase? I don't know the answer. I'm not proposing that I do. I'm just really wondering because I think the work that the WIC does is very, very valuable. And especially the coordinating responsibility that you have. And I'd like to see it be extremely successful. I certainly hope you will not. I think you lost, what was it, $10 million 1 year. And I wonder if that's because you couldn't spend it, or if it was something else, or just what, but I think you had 21 million and you were down to what, 11 million, I think 1 year. And so I'm just very, I'd like for you to have a very robust program, but I also think it's important that we have partners at the door or in the room with you that are going to be very focused, because sounds like it's going to take extreme focus to really move the needle so that we are now at 1,000 enrolled. You see what I'm saying? And maybe 800 that are complete, and then we're talking not 97 employed, but
Well, we might be there by September. So when I come back to you next
Okay.
year, because as I said, many of these programs are continuing, but I think what I'm hearing from you, and I would be remiss to not say so much of the work that we are talking about and reporting on happens beyond the WIC. So
course, of
right. So
course.
our colleagues at DOES, our colleagues at DHS, and all the community-based organizations, Academy of Hope, the many other grantees, they're doing the hardest work. Yes, we are funding grantees.
right.
I will say that 2 years ago, we were funding 1 grantee. Now we have 20 grantees. And so the ability to scale and add capacity, I think, has taught us a lot. But I would be remiss to say, yes, I think it is about having all the right people at the table. I have incredible colleagues, the mayor, all of us with a laser focus on the goals of this administration. I think the comeback plan and the goals outlined there, as you saw when that was shared, have catalyzed us. And so, yes, I'll follow up with you in terms of the question about revenue lost, but our budget historically has been under $10 million, and it has surged as a result of significant funds just for this grant making. And I do think the question for us and for the system as a whole is, what is the right amount of training and the right amount of what type of training, right? We've got some of our really short-term programs of 8 to 12 weeks. You get a person who wants to get into that job as quickly as possible. But then you've also got the 6 month to a year-long training at some of our adult charter schools and CBOs, where we are still working to get to the place where I could sit up here and tell you, here's the data that says how many short-term slots, how the interest in people in that many, and there's the interest or need of this many longer term slots and for which types of industries. I think we're getting there. But we are trying to build the information from more than a dozen agencies. And so there is much work to be done, but I am incredibly lucky to have colleagues who are, I think, squarely focused on the same things you and I are.
Yes, I believe you. And what I'm really concerned with is how do we move the dial is really what I'm concerned with. At your and I hope that I'll be able to participate in your board meeting soon.
Great.
You know what I mean? Okay, waiting on that designation, but in the meantime, at your February board meeting, you discussed plans to organize a workforce summit in July of
June,
this. Oh, it's going to be in June. Okay.
June 1st and 2nd. And we will gladly share information with you, the rest of the council and the community. It'll be held at the Kellogg Center at Gallaudet University.
Okay.
And this is going to be an opportunity to bring together practitioners, workforce system partners, have opportunities for learning, community of practice, look at some data and some of our shared goals for how we can collaborate even further.
Mhm. When you say look at data, does your entity, your council maintain a list of all of the, I guess, workforce training programs? All right, you do that, and it also will tell us the tour of duty to participate in those.
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the accomplishments I shared was the
Mhm.
My Journey DC and the participant portal. Within that, an individual can go onto our website, onto our resources, log in and access a community catalog with more than 70 organizations in there. They
Okay.
offer a couple hundred programs, and it will detail for whom and eligibility requirements and little map of where they're located. And so I think that's also one of the challenges and opportunities that DC has is we've got so many opportunities in the government. You know, we're funding training programs out of Department of Employment Services in partnership with Department of Transportation and Energy and the Environment. And then we've got community-based organizations and, you know, So Others Might Eat and DC Central Kitchen and others. And our aspiration is to be able to pull all of those things together in one place. And we've made progress where we've got a lot of those organizations outside of the government in our community catalog, but that will be hopefully a next step for us. But one of the things that we're also trying to figure out is there are real limitations around some of these programs, right? The enrollment requirements. You can't actually access some of our training programs until you're enrolled with TANF, with SNAP, in WIOA at the American Job Center with DOES. And so I think there's still some mapping and alignment that we have to do, but we maintain what we call the Eligible Training Provider List, ETPL, the acronym, where this is the list of organizations approved by the Workforce Board that we partner with Department of Employment Services on. So if you were to walk into the American Job Center and you are enrolled and you are recommended for occupational skills training, and you say, I want to get a commercial driver's license, or I want to get a CNA, you could be referred and it's free of charge, and our federal dollars pay for that training on this ETPL list. There's only about 21 organizations on that list. But there's also CNA that Academy of Hope offers, that WIC funds through our ARPA funds. There's also IT programs that are funded by other grantees and some of our Mayor's Office of Community Affairs grants, right? And so I think we have a wealth of resources, and our aspiration is to better connect all of those organizations, the service providers and residents to find the right fit for them.
I appreciate that last statement you made, because it sounds to me like for the average person, you almost have to be a wizard to participate in these programs because there are many and there are different requirements to access the programs. And so I'm hoping that your workforce summit will help people to understand better what is available to them. But in order to get to the real issue in the District of Columbia today, which is that there are many jobs, but we don't have takers for these jobs, or at least they don't know that there are jobs that they can, apply for. What I would like to understand is are you encouraging anyone who wants to have a new job or have a job to enroll in, let's say, DOES? Is that primarily what you're saying? Enroll there, and then this window of opportunity will open to you? I'm
So-
trying to understand how it works.
I think I understand, and I think it's a great question, to your first statement about having to navigate it, right? That is the challenge, right? We are very lucky that the mayor and our council invest significant amounts of local dollars because we know that we want to provide opportunities for our residents. This is core to, our values as a city, and it fragments, right? The individual agency or part of the agency that's doing this one piece and thing has created, I think, a system that is not always easy to understand. But I would say this is where, at the moment, I would recommend that individual go to careercoach.dc.gov. Connecting with a career coach, because maybe you don't need to enroll in training, occupational training. Maybe you're unemployed and you just need some additional help preparing for interviews or conducting the job search or updating your resume. Maybe you qualify for and would be excited and interested in participating in one of the free post-secondary programs that the WIC has funded with UDC. So part of our IT and healthcare investments also providing free, no cost academic programming for individuals in the workforce development, associates or bachelor's programs within healthcare and IT, including costs for books. And for the workforce development folks, a stipend. And maybe UDC is the best place for you. But again, that's how do folks know it's not just going to one place, because if you are an individual with disabilities, you would qualify for subsidized employment with disability services. And so this is again where helping folks connect and know even what else is out there, I think is the starting point. Now, one of the things for us for Career Coach DC and working through the American Job Center is helping create this knowledge and these resources in a really sustainable way. So including our career coaching services, our grant that we've offered right now, there's also a community of practice. So other agency staff that will be here long after our ARPA funds have expired, will be continuing to serve our residents. They're going to benefit from the tools, the resources, the information that we're applying through Career Coach DC. And we're doing that with a national partner, the Markle Foundation, Rework America Alliance. So we're building on all these national best practices to do this. But we know that this is going to have to keep existing. And we want to transform the way that we've done it overall so that every agency, no matter where you go, you have these tools and resources about everyone else and what they're doing. But that's where I would say is the starting point, because right now there's lots of starting points. And that I think is part of the challenge.
Yes, it is. It's a great part of the challenge, if you ask me. Well, I've got many other questions, but these questions are a result of your testimony. That now we'll go to these others, and I'm okay. You comfortable? Do you
I'm
need
good.
water or anything?
I'm good. Thank you.
Because we can get you water if you'd like.
I'm fine.
All right. Will the WIC continue to support the 6 FTEs currently funded through the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds?
So You're referencing, for those not aware, as I shared, many of our grant programs were stood up brand new as a result of the district receiving these funds. And so we have individuals supporting our Career Coach DC program, our grant making, and the data and infrastructure needed to help track and deliver those programs. We are excited to work with the mayor and with the council as we think about what of that work will continue in the future. But we are fully committed to continuing any of those programs that we would be funded for. So,
Okay, so you
To be
don't know at
determined.
this moment.
no, we are working
Okay,
with the mayor
all
and the administration to
Yeah.
see where the priorities will be for the
yeah.
next year.
I understand all of that, believe me.
You've
So
been
you
through
can, you can just, you can just say, well, I don't know yet, and it's fine. I'm just trying to, really get ready for the budget,
part,
know,
yes.
and to make sure you don't lose anything that you gain. I mean, I think the work that is being done is very important. So that's where my head is. Okay.
Of course.
Okay. What is the total number of WIC funded programs that are specifically for adults?
So I'm going to try to explain a little bit more context. So when we say programs,
Mhm.
I'm going to start with grants. So,
Mhm.
right, we are running a handful of grants, about 5 grants that we've run. All of them, particularly because they are funded, all but one of them are funded with the federal COVID recovery funds, are for adults. So anyone 18 and older. And so that's where I talked about for most of our programs, it's individuals who are 18 and older, often who have not yet completed a bachelor's degree or who qualify as low income. So the WIC doesn't actually directly fund any youth training. Part of our state and local function and partnership with Department of Employment Services is that we actually work with DOES. Our board has received, and I think one of Ms. White testified about the uncertainty about who does what with regard to youth, but DOES has been delegated the authority to do the grant making for youth services. And so actually in this past year, we did update our policy. And so DOES shares with the WIC the solicitation. So they work with Office of Contract and Procurement and procure or grant out to youth serving programs, but they do share it with the WIC for review before they do that. So
Okay.
we don't
And-
run any youth
All right.
programs.
And so let's see if we can have a context of this. What I'm asking of the programs that you have expounded on that are emulate in other agencies, I'm asking those that you kind of like you coordinate these agencies and what they're doing and what they're thinking about workforce. So that's what I'm trying to get to. I understand that
Sure.
you don't run a program per se, or a grant program, but that these agencies that fall under your umbrella, that's what I'm
Sure.
asking about. Okay.
So I can refer you back to, and we can follow up on this. That would be in the expenditure guide. So the
Okay.
Workforce Development and Expenditure Guide includes more than 50 programs that are funded by, I think, 15 or 16 agencies. Again, it's in its final review. We'll be
Okay.
sending it to council in the coming
Okay.
weeks, but I can follow up with you on that.
All right. And the same question for you, if you're saying it's
also
one
there.
program,
No, there are
one
many.
grant program. No.
So sorry. No, it's good. And I'm glad to be learning along with you.
I
It's
am
taken me 4
determined
years.
to learn what
You've
you
got it.
do. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do.
So there's a couple levels of the umbrella. So as you were just saying, the big umbrella.
Yes.
So there's a bunch. So the mayor's umbrella, the administration, there's the government umbrella, right? In that umbrella, there's our local funds, right? And there's a whole bunch of umbrellas of federal funds, right? At the narrowest, the Workforce Board and the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, WIOA, has these 4 streams of funds. So there's 4 specific funds that are directly under the purview of the WIC. Now we advise and support as we think about the city's investments overall with our local funds and with other federal partners. But in WIOA, there are 4 funds. So they're titles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Titles 1 and 3 serve adults and go to DOES. And so that also is probably helpful for some of the outcomes and the other questions and data that we've shared in our response. Title II is for adult education, and that goes to OSSI. And those are the funds that are connected with some of our local funds that support the Career Pathway Innovation Fund that Ms. Johnson spoke about. And then there's Title IV, and that goes to the Department of Disability Services, to their vocational rehabilitation services.
Okay.
And so that is for individuals with disabilities.
All right, that
So
is
there's one
very
youth
helpful.
there.
Yeah,
But you would be remiss to not, think about all of the funding that goes to DOES specifically for some youth employment and our in-school and out-of-school opportunities and all of those. And then, of course, OSSI and their career technical education. And that's where the WIC, I sit on that same board that Mr. Banks does for the Career Advisory Network. Yep. And Sabangali, who's on that board, is on mine. We have lots of boards. And so at the end of the day, we're trying to bring it all together. Yes.
amen. Thank you very much. We are very confused, but we're gonna get there. Okay, I just wanted to see if I could unravel it, and so you've helped a little bit.
This is the task, and we've got to be able to unravel it for ourselves, because we've got to unravel it for our residents. And I haven't
Yes.
even talked about our employers, right? Our
I know.
employers
Oh,
are
no, we
dominating.
haven't even gotten to
Yes.
that group. You're
won't-
right.
I won't skip
you're right. Yes, yes, amazing. Okay. Oh, all right. Well, you get to talk about them. What is the total number of corporate and business enterprises that participate in any of the WIC training and employment programs?
Sure. So I
Okay.
would refer you back to our PAR, Performance Accountability Report, which is question 23. And we have measured that in a variety of ways. Unfortunately, our data systems don't allow us to look at just an individual. So it's question 23 in your binder, to look at discrete folks. We are moving towards the Salesforce platform. We are hopeful to be able to deduplicate, but in fiscal year 2022, we engaged with 707 business leaders. Now thank you. That's could be many business leaders joining multiple meetings, conversations, engagement opportunities. But that's something we aspire to continue to build out, because we know that there's so many people that have jobs and are needing employees, and we want to help make sure that our residents are getting hired by them.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. The WIC convenes 5 working groups made up of representatives from core workforce agencies and agency partners to improve the implementation of the 4-year state plan. According to your responses on question 44 and 50, one of the goals of the work plan is to identify opportunities for co-enrolling residents in programs that maximize their career and education goals. If what you have already shared with us isn't enough data, now we're talking about co-enrolling. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I'll refer back to when I talked about my journey DC, right? Where we have all these agencies, many of which have robust federal reporting requirements. They have their own data systems that, for purposes of security and privacy, we don't have one place where we can look at an individual who's receiving Department of Employment Services resources, plus is participating in our housing benefits or childcare benefits. And so through My Journey DC, we're able to make those referrals. So as I shared in this last year, we've had over 1,000 people referred in and across, many of which are being referred from one program into enrollment in the other. Now, we're not yet at a place in the system where I can pull and say, of those 1,000, X number were actually enrolled, because maybe they were referred to that service, but they didn't actually qualify, or they didn't ultimately enroll. But That's what we mean by co-enrollment is we know that people can benefit from a whole bunch of our resources and we want to make sure they're taking full advantage of all of them.
All right, I appreciate that so much. Then what does it mean when you say grade program funding? What's that?
The joys of federal and different funding streams. And so I am not a financial officer. I will not pretend to be, but there are requirements and ways in which that funds must be used and the ways that we report their use to our federal funders for WIOA dollars, for TANF or SNAP, for housing dollars, DCHA. And in an ideal world, and one of the things that we would love to continue moving towards, though there are real challenges and barriers, is being able to use those funds in a more collaborative, braided way. When we say braided, it's connecting those resources. So for example, in some other jurisdictions, a local workforce board might receive titles $1, $2, $3, and $4. Take a little bit of each of those and they say, okay, well, because I have a little of each of these dollars, I want to braid it and I want to serve whoever comes in my door, not limiting to Title I, to Title II, Title III, Title IV. I'm just going to serve you because you come to our door. And then on the back end, I'm going to have to figure out the paperwork and the reporting and the data. It is, we don't make it easy. We have responsibilities for these public dollars and to make sure that we are accounting for them accordingly. But in an ideal world, I think there are opportunities for us to look at various federal funds that could be used in innovative ways, as well as our federal and local funds.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, in Title II, the adult education administered by OSSI, their adult and family education program.
Mhm.
It gives grants to community-based organizations and local education agencies to support integrated education and training, including adult education and literacy, workforce preparation, and workforce training. Could you explain in more detail what the goals of this program are?
Sure. So years ago, the Career Pathways Task Force was established with a goal of looking at, and I think you brought this up earlier, residents with low literacy and low numeracy, and how do we connect them into work? Because, as I said earlier, folks have responsibilities and not everyone has the choice or opportunity to take 6 months or a year not working, not contributing with the salary to participate in a program that will build up their literacy or numeracy. There are also real challenges. Some of our training providers have requirements. We're working with them to try to reduce those barriers, but some of our programs just can't enroll individuals who don't yet have an 8th or 9th grade reading level. They just are not able to meet those needs. And so integrated education and training, IE&T, was the model, the approach, a proven practice that members of the task force identified as one that we wanted to innovate and invest in. And as Ms. Johnson and Academy of Hope shared, and as the other grantees that we've shared in our responses, these organizations are doing a both and. How do we help you get to your high school diploma or your GED? And they're raising literacy and numeracy rates. And so that is a key measure, right? They are tracking, they're doing CASAS score on the front end or TABE to test where you are at the start and where you are at the end. But they're also layering that with credential training. So it's a both and of 2 goals of getting you a hospitality credential, getting you a CNA, and raising your literacy and numeracy. Now, as Ms. Johnson said, and as many of our other providers and grantees would share, there's a lot, right? There's a lot of supports and services and the people and the resources that are needed to help individuals invest in that time. Not all of our funding has allowed for stipends throughout this period. And so that precludes some people from being able to enroll in these types of programs. But the goal is to help people get to work as quickly as possible and also raise their overall literacy and numeracy skills.
Can you provide to me, let's say within 10 days or so, a list of all of the data points that you collect. Maybe that will help me see the breadth of all of these, the cross fertilization, as I call it, that we are collecting as it relates to employment, enrollment in employment programs. I'm interested in learning who enrolls in what. When I say who, not by name or anything like that, but, just, are people enrolling? And if they're enrolling, what else did they procure from that particular program that they enrolled in? Because you just explained that there's this, you enroll for this and you end up with all these other benefits. And so I'm just trying to understand what is happening in our employment world. I think a lot of good things are going on. I think it's very complex, but I also feel like it bogs the mind. I mean, trying to, and plus we continue to say, you have a choice, you have a choice. Well, if you're unemployed or underemployed, you may not know where to go. I mean, when I say where to go, you may not, you read 70 different entities, you might still need some guidance. Almost like, when we were in school, you had the, guidance counselor and it helped a little bit because you thought you wanted to be 5 or 6 different things or something like that. And to narrow you down to what is it that you like and you're most comfortable doing. So I'm trying to get through all of this variety, opportunity to at least have a list of what all we really do offer an individual. If it's 70 different things, that's fine. If it's 10, that's fine. Just want to have a sense of things, because I think we're at a point where it's not good enough to do as we did years ago, where we said DC has 300,000 jobs. And we have individuals that leave our educational system and somehow they don't get these jobs. And so now we're saying, but we're trying to handle the situation by giving people an opportunity, a second chance, so to speak, to gain some skills, opportunity to really perhaps build successful lives through their occupation, through their work. And so I'm just trying to see what are we talking about? What are we giving them an opportunity for success? I mean, we put a lot of money into many different programs in this government offers, but do we put enough money in workforce development? I don't know, because I don't know all of what you can be exposed to and get results from. And that's what I'm trying to get a sense of.
So a couple of thoughts, and I would turn your attention to question 72, the expenditure guide. So the printout has some of the information. It's available for download that gives you a look at the different agencies, the different programs, the different services, all of those. So happy to even find time with you, with your staff, to sit down and sort of talk through that a little bit more, because I think that's a landscape. Now, that doesn't even include all of our community-based organizations. We have done some landscape analysis and surveys, right, where individual organizations and communities have created opportunity. But I'd actually even add to what your last statement was of, like, not just a second chance, but how are we intentionally doing it from the first chance? And I think this is something that, I began my career as an elementary school teacher. Education is close to my heart. And if we're doing the right things there, then we should be providing as many opportunities for folks to not even need to have a second chance, because we've given them the first chance. And I just want to name some of the work that the Deputy Mayor for Education has been leading with OSSI, with DC Public Schools, with our charter schools, our look at, I think we've put forward and are investigating an opportunity to create data systems that help us look at, okay, where do kids go from our schools into post-secondary? And, we need to, really be looking at all the robust pathways out of high school, right? Like there's beginning in middle school. I know OSSI and our schools are really focused on career exploration and awareness. We've got earn and learn programs partnering with the Department of Employment Services and our career academies to get real hands-on technical experience through MBSYEP for young people. But we know that some of them are going to go to college, some of them maybe into apprenticeship, maybe some of them into work. And I think this is a place where looking at the data, where are our young people going? How are we setting up for success is going to be a critical part of that. So not prevention on the front end or like tackling the front end, while we also look at what do we do with adults who are looking to change careers or connect.
When I think about the WIC, I'm confused. I'm confused as to the actual role of the WIC. I'm confused because it sounds like it does many different things in its coordinating function. But at the same time, is the function and the coordination too vast for just a council? Are we now beginning to look at an organization that is sort of like a clearinghouse for bringing together those who left school, secondary school as an example, those who feel they're underemployed, in other words, a variety of individuals that are striving to better themselves, almost like a career office of career development, not DOES. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just wondering, as we talk about the WIC, as you expound on it, and after going through all of the data that you provided us with, I'm just desperately trying to understand exactly what the WIC does, other than this coordinating function, and trying to get more employers involved in providing opportunities for a workplace for DC residents. I'm clear on those functions, but I'm trying to understand how it really works, how you do the work that you do, and whether or not we can get more product from it. And if more resources were within your realm, would you get more product? And that's because we need more product, desperately need more product. And so that's I guess at the back of my thoughts and discussion with you today.
I think that's a good question. And I think this is where trying to think of like an analogy to liken it to, but old commercial, and I'm going to probably date myself, but like these BASF commercials, like we don't make things, we make things better, right? Like we, the WIC, we do some stuff, but our job is to make it all better. And so I would offer that, like, I don't own our youth work, right? So as I was referencing all the career technical education and our out of school time youth and things, our partners at DOES and our partners in K-12 are driving that. But our participation and what we get to share with them from the work that we do is ensuring that there's alignment, right? Serving a young person, serving an adult who wants to go into IT, it's not that different. Maybe it's where they start to get the credential or the ways in which they can participate in a credential training program. And so we're still playing that glue role. And I think that's aligned with the 5 goals. So our WIC plan has 5 goals around access, around employers, around youth work, around our data and infrastructure. And that is our remit. There's a whole bunch happening through there. And I would turn us to our WIO implementation questions. I think you already referenced those 2 numbers, but the whole list of things, there's some things that the WIC is doing and driving. And there are some that we're facilitating or we're supporting, or we're just bringing in. And so it's the glue, or it's the table that all the other agencies who are maybe owning pieces of the work get to bring it together to make sure that all of our pieces fit. And so that's I think how I would articulate the boundaries, right? We aren't trying to do everything, but we are trying to make sure that everything that we're doing is at least visible, right? Like how are we knowing that what we're doing in our high schools is the right thing, or in the same direction as what we're doing at our community college, right? They should be headed in the same direction because we're guided by the same policies and values. And so that's where the state plan, the policy making of the WIC, our convening ability helps make sure that the people who are doing those other pieces are driven by the same underlying direction. The data that we're producing, the labor market information that we and other partners are bringing to the table is ensuring that we're working off the same song sheet.
Okay, how many seniors age 60 plus are enrolled in the district's adult programs, like the Senior Community Service Employment Program?
I would have to turn us to the expenditure guide again. I believe that we would have that in there, but I can circle back and let you know.
Okay, please. And the same question regarding veterans?
Sure.
Okay. And can we get that number for FY 21, 22, and 23? I want to see if there is any noticeable increase number now that we're out of, the pandemic, sort of out of the pandemic at least.
Sure.
UDC's report on the partnership noted that they would like to receive more funding for the program in FY 23. And this is the partnership that you launched to provide IT and healthcare training and certification at no cost to eligible DC residents. And the partnership expected to serve 340 students in FY 22. However, it only actually served 180 students. So I want to know, given the low overall participation, how much money are you thinking through your grant program is the WIC willing to spend on this partnership for FY 20?
Sure.
For?
Thank you for that question. And we're happy to share. We've shared our other memorandums of understanding with the council. We haven't finalized the current fiscal years, although it will go back to the beginning of this year. But we are estimating, in part because the council approved additional language to allow UDC to pay for some of the salaries, right? Costs. Again, one of our public witnesses shared that educators are expensive and hard to find. And for their healthcare training, that was a limiting factor for them in the past year. And so we are allocating some additional resources for that. I believe that our current agreement will likely land at roughly the same amount of funding, especially as we're sort of partway through the year at this point. But I will share that MOU with you as soon as it's executed.
Okay, thank you very much. When do you expect that will be executed?
With lawyers.
Okay.
Not a lawyer.
Got you. I got you. Okay.
Soon,
Okay.
I hope, as soon as I can,
All right, thank you.
of course.
Okay, the Career Coach DC program. We talked a little bit about it, and it is about DC residents that are looking for professional advancement in many instances. And I think you awarded $3.4 million grant to hire and train 30 career coaches. And supported the program through outreach, intake, and assessment. And since the launching of the program in July of 2022, 1,360 residents were referred to the program, but only 625 have received the services. What's going on? Do we know?
So a number of factors. Yes, we
Okay.
are working closely with our friends and colleagues in the community affairs office across other agencies, We participated in some of DDOT's open streets events, tabling, and as I shared, we're located at more than a dozen locations throughout the city. So they're in person and encouraging people to enroll. The 1,300 or so folks who have connected may have connected by phone, by our website portal, been referred either by themselves or by caseworkers or others into receiving services. The 600 plus is who is actually enrolled. And so part of that gap we often have found is someone might be referred, but then not choose to enroll. And so that is something that we're trying to figure out is, does someone think that it's perhaps too intensive, or it might be requiring too much of them and they're not quite sure about it? What is our timing? We don't actually think that lag is a problem. We are also experiencing some of these folks who are referred, but not actually eligible. So as I shared, they have to be 18 and older, not yet have completed a bachelor's or qualify as a low-income individual. And so we think that is often the lack of motivation or awareness of the program and or ineligibility. And this also is a moment in time snapshot too. So some of those folks out of the 1,300 could still be working to get enrolled, right? But this is just what we look at this one moment. So it's sort of hard to say that all of the remainder that aren't enrolled won't become enrolled.
Yeah, I was concerned because the information we had, it said that these are DC residents looking for professional advancement. And it seems to me a number of these would be looking for advancement, may already have a degree, and they're just looking to move further. So that could, as you say, that could be one of the issues that you're encountering. Of the 625 who received the services, who are enrolled, were they, are they successful in changing jobs or getting jobs or having greater educational opportunities?
So we'll have more data on that in the coming months. But one of the things I can share is that it really is individualized, right? This is human-centered design. One of the best practices around career coaching is meeting people where they are. And so the individual plan is co-created with the coach and the individual, right? It might be an individual who says, I want to move into this job, or my plan might be towards enrolling in education, right? And so success for that individual will really depend on what type of plan they develop. And they'll identify benchmarks and milestones along the way, preparation for interviews, job search, assessment. And so what we can say though, is the majority of people who are enrolling in Career Coach want to go straight to work. So there's 4 distinct pathways that we have within Career Coach. Are you just curious and trying to see what's out there? And I'm going to talk to you and sort of just lay the land. Or am I at a place where I know I want to get to education or training, or am I at a point where I'm ready to work? I just need help with my job search, help me find openings and help me prepare to be successful in the interview process. And so we know that that latter one is where most people want to go. But we hope to have information about completion rates around their coaching plans and employment and all of those measures. But at this point, our data system isn't yet able to pull that at the moment in time.
Okay, so as we examine this program, which you have shown is a favorite of the WIC, the Career Coach DC program. And because it's an individual plan, do we yet know how much, or can we set a monetary value for this individual plan? Does it vary? I think you told me one other program, it varies from 6,500. Yeah, it's okay. That's a different plan.
Yes.
Okay, this plan, can we set some parameters, financial parameters around what this tends to be costing per participant?
We don't have that information at the
Yeah,
moment. I
okay.
think this is also part of the squishiness, and part of what also the expenditure guide speaks to is we have services that are there that have very concrete quantitative outcomes. Did you get enrolled in a training program? Did you get a credential? And I can tell you how much it costs per credential. We have other programs that are just offering resume assistance. And I can't say how many people got jobs that participated in resume workshops, or how many people got into workshops where it is the supportive services and it's less quantifiable resources. But we know that those are the supportive services that residents are telling us they most need. So no, we can't say that right now, but we do hope to have more data regarding how many people successfully completed their individual coaching plan, and more data about the types of services and outcomes of those individuals, either those enrolled in training or those who've secured employment at the conclusion of the grant program later this year.
Okay, thank you for that. The Employer Partnership Training Grant Program.
Mhm.
Can you speak to the success and impact of this program and explain how it relates to the district's overall goals for workforce development? I think in question 83, you indicated it was a very successful program in FY22 with 80% of the participants completing the program and almost 80% of the graduates receiving a credential. So this is one of those that is pretty finite and you can quantitate. Okay,
Mhm.
let's talk.
Sure. So this was one that we were really excited to pilot, to innovate. Other jurisdictions have programs like this that are sort of baked into their workforce system. I think that we have some good lessons learned. But before we talk about outcomes, sort of back to theory and approach, where at the end of the day, we hear from our board members, right? My business-led board appointed by the mayor, from small business to large businesses, that often where's the return on our investment? We're training all these people, or we hear from residents, I did this program, I got there, but where's the job? Or I wasn't able to successfully get that job. And like you said, some of the mismatch of who we're preparing and what employers need. And so this started with the premise of employers have got to be at the table and play a different role in how we prepare people. And so the awards went to intermediaries or to the businesses themselves, right? This is a flip it all on its head, where often we are giving money to the supportive organization, supportive services, or to the training or educational organization who hopes that who they're preparing is connected to employment. I think there's been a lot of shift there. And as you heard from some of our public witnesses, like they're making those connections. But we're like, okay, let's skip it to the employers, right? So these are organizations. Part of their application was commitments to hire. How many people are you going to hire? That's what we care about. We want to hiring people above minimum wage, or you might have people who work for you already that you could help get to a credential or training, and then they could take that next level job up. You can't recruit enough people for this tier 2 job. Let's train people that are already invested in your business, that are already working and doing what they need to, and let's help them move on their career pathway. And so there was a division between applications that applied for pipelines and new people to get credentials and trained and commitments to hire, and those employers that sought to help upskill, that's the terminology we'd use, people who are already in their employ. And so that's the data that we are able to share here, because at least for fiscal year 22, we've got a handful who are continuing the program and training more people in FY23. But really it was the training organizations that they partnered with, for those that are able to do credentials, that there was a better connection between what are the skills, is the curricula, are the things that we're training people on actually what you need them to have, so that they're ready when they finish that credential and they finish the program. And so, yes, we are excited to see, now I can talk about some of the challenges too, but we're excited to see the outcomes of this and hope to see continued more of these folks hired, employed, and great wages to help them on their career pathways.
All right, well, I appreciate hearing that. And of course, you know, I was thinking as you were talking that, wow, if we could do what you did with this program by bringing those who provide training for specific subject matter jobs, maybe they could come to the table and tell you how many they can handle and train in a space of time and what it would costs and what kind of, individual or personalities they're looking
Mhm.
for, whether they're motivated or not motivated, and, maybe that's a way of also looking at some of those other programs. Just a thought.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
I think this is a model and, we're really excited to have piloted this. I will say employers having to figure out how to learn to be a grantee of the government and working with the government. There were some lessons learned, and I want to give a huge shout out to my team who built this program and built the grant making system and
Mhm.
worked hand in hand with these employers to help them, because we are using public dollars here, have to do reporting and the stewardship that requires. It's been a lot of hand holding. So I think that's something that we've learned, and can talk a little bit about some of the technical assistance work that we're doing for employers, right? How can they be the best
Mhm.
partners? But I would say that one of the things that I would also offer is some of our colleagues across the country have tailored training programs, right? We in DC, I think, face a unique challenge because of our lack of economies of scale, right? So just to give a macro view, right? Higher Education Licensure Commission licenses any organization that's offering a credential or training, a degree in DC. Our colleagues at OSCE, the Higher Education Licensure Commission, there's over 150 organizations licensed to do training in DC. Of those, less than 55 of them are actually focused on less than bachelor's degree programs. 55, that's it. And if we segment that even further, there's less than 40 that are actually doing credentials and training in our highest demand sectors. That's it. So we're talking about these programs, many of which are homegrown, are, really seeking to support our community. But when you're talking about the margins that they're working with, they're 5 or 10 people here and there, the size of their organizations. I think UDC and the community college have sought to add more capacity in here. And that's a place that we're continuing to work with President Mason and all of his colleagues on, to really have them play a robust role at a larger scale. But DC, we will never compete with Maryland and Virginia in terms of just the volume of people going through our workforce training. And so figuring out some of these ways that we have to work creatively and innovatively, but other jurisdictions have, some of them call it a quick start program, or where the community college in that jurisdiction says, hey, business, you want to move here? We're going to tailor a curricula. We're going to create this training program. We will create a training program just for your business. We aren't yet there, but I
Okay.
think this is a model for us to learn from.
All right, well, you just helped me understand that, when you have a commodity, and I'm looking at the training programs, that's a commodity. They, and the buyer is the customer that wants to be trained. And seems to me, if you don't have customers that know that they can leave your enterprise and go into a job, then maybe the training that you offer needs to be modified.
Mhm. I would actually offer that those training providers also have another customer, the employers, where the employers are saying, hey, you all are training all these folks, but they're not actually meeting my needs. And so it's multi-layered.
Yeah.
But yes, that is
Okay.
where we've got to do work with training organizations, help them be at their best, employers and the
All
residents.
right, I thank you so much for your responses, because you're helping me to understand the status of our workforce development. And thanks to your team too. I can.
Great team. I'm very lucky.
They're paying attention. I appreciate that so much. The Talent Development Technical Assistance Grant. This is a new program, correct? Yeah. So how will this grant support opportunities for district residents who do not have a 4-year degree, as an example? Or
Sure.
does it even?
This one won't be limited because this one's really focused on employers. So again, back to our sort of theory, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics, but we have invested a lot of money, not just the WIC, but Department of Employment Services, our Earn and Learn, the Advanced Technical Center, DC Futures, OSCE, right? We are using all these COVID recovery resources to help more of our folks become competitive and armed with the tools they need to be in these amazing jobs. We also know that part of the challenge, like the other half of the equation, is the employers, right? Are they hiring our residents? And we know that there are barriers, real and perceived. There are things like historical legacies of racism and classism and competition in our community, because DC does attract talent from across the country as we move into even more remote work, right? You could hire someone in a place with a lower minimum wage, or find the skills you need across the country. That we need employers coming to the table and positioned to be great places for our residents to work. And so TDTA, the Talent Development Technical Assistance Grant, really is designed at bringing resources and information and tools, ultimately a cohort as well, of employers together who want to look at how are they utilizing skills-based hiring. So looking at people's skills and experiences, not just a credential, not just a diploma, and matching what people have with what they need, right? It is much easier to say, and we've probably all seen this, right? You look at job postings, bachelor's degree required, 5 years experience required. Does that job actually require that? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But maybe you actually need someone with critical thinking skills, strong communication skills that will help them be employed, and not just a credential. So while we're still arming people with credentials because they're portable, because they are of value to the individuals earning them, we also know that employers want to think even more expansively about the types of people they're hiring, right? We have all these people who've moved careers or who are getting these training, maybe coming from alternative ways to be prepared that these employers have never hired from. One of our board members who works in hospitality said his organization has adjusted how they look at background checks, or removed that as a barrier, because the reality is they just can't hire enough people. And so they've had to take a look at their policies and processes. And so TDTA, which has been awarded to District Bridges, who works with a lot of our local business facing Main Street type efforts throughout DC, has been awarded a $500,000 grant. It began just in this last month or so. And they're going to be charged with working with the WIC, some of our national partners, to create resources. So we're going to convene employers. We're going to help people learn about ways that they can implement these more expansive best practices like skills-based hiring, look at equity in their processes, and then ultimately have a cohort of willing and excited employers who want to take a stab at doing even more of this work. Because we know that it's not just about putting our residents out there, it's how are we actually connecting them to employers. And so this is going to be a way for us to help those employers come to the table and be great employers for our residents.
Okay, so but ultimately the goal of these employers is to hire DC residents.
Absolutely.
All right, that's really very important. Thank you for that. You know, we're not going to question you to death. We've got 60 more questions. No, I'm just teasing, but we do have quite a few. And what I think is better, you've answered many of the questions in your 1,000-page
Again, my team
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah, your big book, and you
yes.
brought it here so that everyone will see that, in fact, you actually did, and thank you so much for that again. Just a few more. It's regarding the youth implementation working group. You're looking to organize or support all youth hiring events in the district, is that correct? And can you explain what that means and how you will organize it, please?
Sure. So as I shared earlier, right, we fund workforce and career opportunities for young people in a lot of different places and ways. And so through our working group, which is built off of our state plan, right, there's 5 goals, we've got 5 working groups made up of multiple agency representatives. It really is the place where we're trying to see, hey, DCPS or DOES, if you're already organizing something, how can we bring these efforts together instead of having competing efforts or priorities? And so we are coordinating those folks, looking at what resources they're already investing, and we'll probably play the coordination, collaboration role of like bringing everyone together, amplifying the messaging, marketing through our grantees, through that regular AJC coordination meeting. But many of our partners are already doing this. Our goal would be to have a few that are larger at scale and across multiple agencies, not just one agency at a time.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm going to make another quick plug on this.
Okay, all
And
right.
actually, I will send this to you. We can send this to you today. There are a couple other really great financial literacy, and this is some good ideas from our colleagues at the Literacy Council. But next week, UDC and OSSI are partnering with a whole bunch of organizations and offering a virtual day-long set of seminars on financial literacy. No registration required. We'll share that out. And DOES is also offering a financial literacy training, and happy to share and amplify that. And so again, while we are doing lots of different things, our goal will always be how are we doing the most people, and making it easier to access and not have to pick and choose across a million different things happening.
so in doing a million things, as you indicated, do you collect any data that at all tells you how many households you're reaching or that these programs reach? Can you begin to collect that? I think that would help us to understand the value of a program like yours. And the workforce programs we have, the training programs we have, and some appreciation for the employers. On that note, I want to know if you helped with any recruitment, or are you helping to recruit employers for the Summer Youth Employment Program?
So we have, of course, Director Morris Hughes sits on the Workforce Investment Council as part of our organization, and we amplify those opportunities to employers and everyone that we partner with. I will give a shout out to the DOES team led by Pablo Venturino, who leads the American Job Center work within DOES. And he brings those resources and those needs and opportunities to our working group conversations, so that regular call. So yes, our partners bring information to us. We share them with everyone else that's our partner, adding to the amplification.
Okay,
And
so-
our board members, sorry, and many of our board members participate as well.
Okay, so when we think of the WIC, can we say that the WIC has identified 10 new employers, 20 new employers, 100 new employers, or what?
That's a
Or
good question.
can you really count? See, this society is set up with numbers. We got to count. We got to count what we're doing.
So I think we can circle back with you on some of that.
Yeah.
But whether it's new employers, so this is also where I would say we have a business engagement team within the WIC, right? This is a function that we added a couple of years ago, but every one of our partners also has a business engagement team. So they're
Right.
also all reaching out to employers.
Right.
And so I don't know that our goal, yes, and through the grant specifically, is to identify a couple hundred additional employers that are coming to the table. But I would say that the system for employers' side would be quality, not quantity. Are we bringing employers who are hiring, and are we streamlining how we're engaging with those employers?
I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
But if we're going to hire 10,000, 14,000 young people, and we have the capacity of 6,000 or 7,000 businesses in the city, then I'm really asking, who's participating? Are they all participating, or is it a part that's participating? And how does the WIC function in order to get more participation from our employers? Because you know that if we don't have their full participation, or at least 50% of their participation, we will not have the workforce that we need in the district and to be district residents. Again, that's our focus, to get DC residents in these jobs.
I think it's a great question. How many employers are there in DC, and how many of them are engaging with our workforce system? I think that's something we could certainly look into. We don't track that at the moment. But I do think you're making the right point, and I'm thinking a lot about the mayor's comeback plan goals, right? We want to add new residents downtown. We want 35,000 new jobs in DC in the next 5 years. And so it is going to be about partnering really closely with DEMPED on attracting employers and working deeply with those that exist.
Yeah, and I'm not going to live downtown or anywhere in this wonderful community of ours if I don't feel safe. So we can go into that aspect. You put it on the table. You're talking
Mhm.
about living downtown. But let's really talk about the employer pool and what are they doing? You know, we do a good job as residents, and the commercial sector, you know, does a pretty good job as well. But the households in the District of Columbia, only what, 30% actually work in DC? That's an issue. It's got to be an issue, because when you look at the revenue side of our government, the commercial side is realizing revenue much more so than having employees that are DC residents. And we don't have corn or anything like that. We just have our people. And if we can't grow with our people, and particularly those that have been here long-term, and those that we graduate from our schools, if we have to continue importing people from other parts of the country or world, then when will those that are here ever feel that this is still their community? And when people feel that they're not attached to something, they act out, as we all know. And that's part of what's going on today. So I'm just really trying to think about how we can have our workforce to be a more integral part of the success that we're trying to build in the district and the success that we're currently experiencing.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's why our efforts and work, you know, we talk about all these things all day, but
I know.
one of the things that Antoine Ford, our fantastic board chair, you know, whose office and business is the native Washingtonian, he now anchors.
I hope you'll
MLK
give me a
Gateway.
call and we can have.
Yes, we need to
breakfast or
make
something.
it happen. We tried. We
Please,
will make it happen,
please.
Councilmember. But one of the statistics is 7-1. 7-1. DC is number one in the Black to white unemployment gap. Right? For every one unemployed white person in DC, there are 7 Black people. And that gap, that divide, and the fact that we are a highly educated community, and we have a community of people with that have not been given and set up for success and opportunities. That is why our grants are targeting helping our residents. And I think that's where the earn and learn and the skills and the credentials, because that is what will help them progress and be competitive. And yeah, it's the challenge, and it's the one that I think we're all very committed to. So I appreciate working with you on this.
You too. Now, you have on the board, I do need to ask you about
Sure.
this. What are the requirements for being a member of the WIC board? And I want to know about these 8 vacancies. Is it really 8 vacancies, or do I count 8 plus the 6 that term expires or did expire in 2022?
We're in the process of working with the mayor's office of talent appointments and with the mayor to appoint new folks. So we are moving on those, but it's outlined in the mayor's order that reestablished the WIC. and it names the types of folks. Of course, overall under WIOA, there are some requirements. It must be business led. So more than 50%, 51% must be business representatives. We also require and have a whole bunch of folks outlined in our mayor's order, like the Deputy Mayor for Education and Department of Human Services, Department of Employment Services itself, myself on the board. But when we think about requirements, I think what the mayor has looked for and what we have supported and the types of folks who are really contributing and bringing so much to our board is the same commitment that I think you've articulated here today of we've got to do more, we've got to do better, and the urgency. I think this is something that my board chair and our board members push my team on every day, is the real implications and impacts that us not being successful at everything just yet have on our residents every day, on our community, on the well-being of our businesses and our employers. And so really it's willing to roll up their sleeves. It's a desire to bring ideas, relationships, connections, job opportunities to the table, and to push and support us in achieving these goals. But yes, it's all in our mayor's order and our bylaws.
And then with your staff, do you have enough staff?
I've got an amazing team. We are right now hiring
Just
for
three? Just three
two,
of you?
19 FTEs this year, a handful of which are funded through our COVID recovery. But I will say I had the privilege of sitting on the workforce board a couple mayors ago, a decade ago, and there was 1.5 FTE. But just to put in context, right, the coordination, all the things that we're trying to do, Mayor Bowser has enabled us to build out the capacity and the strengths and frankly, the support that I think has enabled us to do this so far so well. But it's also because I have great people.
Well, thank you very much. We want you to not be here till 8, 9, 10 o'clock tonight, because we could certainly go on, but thank you very much for your testimony today. We greatly appreciate it. And in fact, thanks to everyone who participated in today's performance oversight hearing. And I hope members of the public have learned about the work of these agencies. And I believe our discussions will help guide us to continuously improve our programs and services and to applaud the programs that are working well. If the public has any additional thoughts or would like to submit written testimony regarding the performance of these agencies, please email it to CEAL@dccouncil.gov, and CEAL is spelled CEAL @dccouncil.gov. The hearing record will close in 10 calendar days, so that would be Saturday, the 4th of March at 5 p.m. The committee's next meeting will be a performance oversight hearing on Monday, February 27th, beginning at 9:30 a.m. And we will hear from the mighty Department of Employment Services with a full array of programs. This concludes today's hearing, and with that, the time is 5:35 p.m. Same day we started. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.